It is explained that a Fenrir is an S-rank monster capable of destroying a major city by itself. A village under constant attack from this beast has spent nearly all of their savings to hire the flaming Dragonfang to defeat it. Here we see the main character, Kurt Rockhans, who clumsily trips on the path where the Fenrir arrives. The three other members of the adventuring party defeat the monster by working together, which isn't difficult at all. These adventurers are introduced as Bandana, the Swift Ranger, Marlefis, the Priestess, and Golnova, the Flaming Warrior. After defeating the Fenrir, the Flaming Dragonfang became a party of heroes, and even if Kurt is a powerless man in a party full of heroes, he handles their chores on a journey to save the world. They're now staying at an inn, and Bandana casually mentions today's the last day they get to eat Kurt's cooking. Hearing that, Kurt gets a little confused, so Golnova bluntly tells him that it means he's fired because he hasn't done enough. He just does chores and can't even defeat a slime. Marlefis explains that parties can only have 4 members, and that is the law of this world. If they want to become stronger, they'll need to recruit a high-ranked mage, which means they need to drop someone from the party. Bandana mentions that he might carry their bags for them, but Kurt's basically baggage himself. Kurt desperately asks Golnova to change his mind, but he only gets kicked in response. Having no other choice, Kurt goes to the city to find another job, and there he meets Kerschel, a girl from the Hello Workstation. He tells her that he's looking for work, and she explains that they'll start with an interview and an aptitude test. The two of them sit down, so Kurt introduces himself, telling her that he's 15 years old and he's from Hast Village in the Sheen Mountains. Kerschel is seemingly surprised by that information, since she didn't even know there was a village out there. She asks him what kind of work he's done so far, and he hesitantly explains that he handled various chores for the adventuring party Flaming Dragonfang. This takes her by surprise, because that adventuring party is the one that was promoted to SS rank the other day. Kurt looks miserable when he tells her that they fired him though, but Kerschel clarifies that it'll still be quite the feather in his cap. After the interview, they move on to his aptitude test, and she explains that their aptitudes are the talents granted to them by God, so perhaps they'll be able to uncover some hidden talents of his. Aptitudes are rated from G rank, meaning no talent at all the way up to SSS rank, the highest. While someone with a low aptitude for swordsmanship may not be able to cut steel, someone with a high aptitude could split it in two with the same sword. Kurt is excited to find out if he has any hidden talents, but after his aptitude test, the results show that he has no talent for any combat skill and is G rank in everything. Kerschel apologizes, saying that this will limit the work he's capable of, but there's still trade work. They haven't tested his aptitude for things like blacksmithing or alchemy yet, so there's still hope, though the technician is currently absent and he'll have to wait about a week. Kurt confesses that he barely has any money left, so Kerschel decides to try something else, asking him to lift a sandbag. When he tries to do that, he feels like it drains a bit of his mana, and he can only lift it a few inches because of how heavy it is. Kerschel tells him that that's enough, because if he's that strong, then he should be able to handle construction work. A frontier town in the Margraviate of Tycone is recruiting workers to repair their city walls, so she'll prepare a letter of introduction for him. Kurt is relieved to have found a job, so he heads to the frontier town and meets the construction manager, who's not very convinced by his physique, but knows that they're short-handed, so they can't be picky. The man simply asks him to make cement, then mend the walls, and that's it. Kurt is a little confused by those simple instructions because he didn't mention anything about going through the process of pouring mana into the cement to strengthen it. He tries to ask about it, but the manager doesn't let him speak, saying that he'll be back in 3 hours, so he expects him to have gone through at least half a barrel's worth by then. The man leaves him alone, so Kurt assumes that pouring mana into it is such common knowledge that he doesn't even need to explain that part. He gets to work with that in mind, and after 3 hours, the manager comes back and completely freaks out. Kurt quickly apologizes, thinking that he's mad at him because of his performance. He explains that he ran out of cement, so this was as far as he could get. The manager is speechless because Kurt repaired a whole third of the huge western wall in just 3 hours. He doesn't even know how he handled the upper parts, since he doesn't see any scaffolds or ladders. Kurt explains that he scooped up the cement, threw it into place, and then rolled it out with a tool he made with sticks. The manager doesn't even want to believe such madness, but he eventually calms down and accepts that the job was done. He gives Kurt a small part of his payment and explains that he'll transfer the rest later through Hello Work. Kurt is surprised to receive so much money, but he's excited to come back tomorrow to do his best. On his 3rd day of work, the people in the frontier town are in disbelief, since Kurt apparently finished repairs on the west and north walls. Despite his incredible performance, the manager tells him that he doesn't need to come back after today. The wall repair repairs were supposed to provide work to those in poverty too, but if he stays here any longer, there won't be anything left for the others, because he works too fast. Kurt doesn't understand, but the manager claims that the ability he demonstrated here is on par with SS rank, if not SSS rank, so he should get out of here and work in the royal capital. Kurt receives the rest of his pay and is left alone, assuming that the manager wanted to get rid of him so badly that he flattered him and paid him off. Feeling a little sad, Kurt returns to Hello Work and tells Kerschel that things didn't work out. She's a little worried for him because there are still a few more days before the technician arrives. While they think about what to do, they see that a girl is at the reception making a bit of a scene, so Kerschel goes to see what's going on. Her co-worker explains that this woman is looking to hire a miner, but she insists on paying based on successful results without any advance payment for an unproven mountain. The woman clarifies that if she doesn't pay the taxes within a week, then they'll impound the mountain. After hearing that, Kurt offers himself for the job, explaining that he used to help excavate in the mines back in his village. Kerschel asks him if he's sure, but the woman quickly protests, saying that she wants to hire someone like a brawny dwarf, not a helpless child like him. When Kerschel informs her that she would need to pay 10 silver for that, the woman has no other choice but to accept Kurt's help, so she introduces herself as Ulysses, and the two leave after that. Once they leave, Kerschel can't stop thinking about how kind Kurt is, and she even fantasizes about his charms. However, her co-worker informs her that they've received a bank transfer, which is the construction work pay to be deposited in Kurt's account. Kerschel was expecting that payment, but when she sees that they transferred 200 gold coins, she completely freaks out for the huge amount of money and trips on the sandbags from before. Her co-worker clarifies that these aren't sandbags, but rather serve to measure how much mana a person possesses in their body. They get heavier the more mana a person has, but they generally don't react to normal people. It takes mana on the level of a royal court mage to activate them, so they're hard to use. Kerschel confirms this by easily picking up one of the sandbags, but she then remembers the way it activated with Kurt, which makes her wonder who in the world he is. Back with him and Ulysses, after advancing a little, they arrive at a camp, but Kurt complains about the fact that there is only one tent, since he cannot sleep in a tent with a lady as beautiful as her. Ulysses immediately gets flustered, but Kurt clarifies that he's not joking, since he's traveled the whole world and has never seen anyone else as beautiful as her. This only gets her more nervous, so she desperately shakes him to make him shut up. Ulysses tells him that she's been adventuring since she was 10, so there's no way she's cute. She then gives him something she made to eat, and Kurt gets excited, saying that it's been a long time since anyone cooked for him. Golnova and the others never even ate with him, so he's really happy now. Once the night comes, Kurt is unable to sleep, so he turns to see if Ulysses is asleep, but he almost screams when he sees her sleeping almost naked. He quickly composes himself and sits up, saying that she's way too trusting before leaving the tent. Ulysses opens her eyes, as she was just pretending to be asleep like that to test him. They'll be together for a week, so she was planning to use this night to determine if he's the kind of guy who'd do something to her. With this, she confirmed that he's a good boy, and even kind of cute and fun to tease. The next day, Ulysses leaves the tent and notices that Kurt slept outside, and that her clothes are now mended, along with a new button. When he wakes up, she asks if he mended her clothes, and is amazed to find that he has. Leaving that aside, she tells him they need to collect 10 gold coins within the week, and that they're going to start digging nearby, wherever they can. This confuses Kurt, so he tells her that if they dig blindly, they won't find any ore, so he suggests they take a quick look around for something special. After a few minutes, he finds a rock and splits it in two, showing the gems inside, and he explains that it's a crystal worth around 3 gold. Ulysses is beyond shocked by how easy that was for him, and by the fact that they've already hit a third of their goal on the first day. After a while, Kurt finishes looking into the rocks around the area, finding a bunch of crystals. Ulysses is still amazed, and she assumes the next step is to sell these, but Kurt tells her that these crystals are too small to be worth very much, so they'll turn them into magic crystals. That leaves her a little confused, as she thought there were fewer than 10 magic craftsmen in the kingdom capable of manufacturing magic crystals. Just as she finishes speaking, Kurt lets her know that he finished making the first magic crystal. Ulysses freaks out because she's pretty sure that it takes at least an hour to make even the smallest one. Kurt is surprised to hear that, thinking that it's amazing that real magic craftsmen are capable of emitting mana for a whole hour. He, on the other hand, thinks that he did it in just a few seconds, because he doesn't have so much mana. Ulysses gets the feeling that they're not on the same page, but she gives up on explaining. At the end of the day, she goes off to sell the magic crystals, and Kurt stays over at the camp, wanting to do some things while she's gone. Once in the city, Ulysses is asked about documents for crystals from abroad, but she avoids all questions by showing the royal family emblem. She only used to serve under the royal family, but even if she told them the truth about these magic crystals, it's not like they'd believe her. After that, she uses the teleportation stone to go to the royal capital and meets up with a girl named Mimiko, showing her the magic crystals. Mimiko inspects one of the crystals and mentions that its glow doesn't seem that strong, so it's probably not worth much, maybe around 10 silver. However, upon further inspection, she suddenly says that she can buy the crystal for 10 gold. Ulysses freaks out, so Mimiko explains that this magic crystal has 10 times the usual amount of mana imbued in it. It's not glowing very much because it's been treated to prevent the mana inside from leaking out. Ulysses tells her that she has 49 more of these crystals, so Mimiko hands her a bag of 500 gold. However, she wants to make two things clear. One is that she can't sell these magic crystals anywhere but her shop, because any other shops wouldn't understand their proper value, and the kingdom wouldn't want magic crystals this strong out in regular circulation. As for the other thing, she wants to know who made these magic crystals, because someone who can make magic crystals this strong should be working directly for the kingdom. Ulysses tells her that she can't say it, simply because she doesn't want to share information about them without their permission. Mimiko insists, clarifying that it's an order, by the power vested in her as a royal court mage, with status equal to an honorary count. That doesn't seem to put them on good terms, so Mimiko speaks as her friend, asking her to do everything she can to prevent them from wandering off to another nation. She also asks her to inform them that they can offer them the directorship of a Royal Magic Technology Research Lab, with the title of Honorary Baron, possibly Honorary Count pending the proper permission from His Majesty. Ulysses is clearly overwhelmed by all of this, so she heads back to Hello Work to talk with Kershal about Kurt. There, she finds out that he already has 200 gold after repairing the northern and western walls by himself. Ulysses then asks Kershal to deposit 499 gold into Kurt's account, and as an adventurer directly serving under the royal family, she warns her that she's hereby forbidden to divulge any information about him. She goes back to the camp, but is completely shocked to find a whole house that clearly wasn't there before. Kurt mentions that he built it overnight while she was away, but people did it all the time in his hometown, so it's nothing special to him, though it's not common at all for anyone else. Now we see the Flaming Dragonfang party, who, in the middle of a fight, are having serious problems without Kurt as support, and they blame the rookie they've brought into the group. Golnova, as usual, is acting selfishly, and seeing this, Bandana thinks this party is completely done for, as she keeps watching them argue and not knowing how to work together. Meanwhile, Ulysses tells Kurt about the offer to become the director of the Royal Magic Technology Research Lab, where he will also be treated like a noble. He wants to know why they're offering him such grand things, so she explains that the person who appraised the magic crystals serves as a royal court mage as a hobby. This makes Kurt believe she might be deceiving her, but when it's time for him to make a decision, he ends up rejecting the offer. He can't imagine himself working in a role that puts him above others, and part of him still wants to go back to Flaming Dragonfang. Plus, right now his job is to help Ulysses, because he's pretty sure the magic crystals she went and sold weren't enough to pay her taxes. Ulysses nervously tells him that she sold them for quite a bit, but she didn't make those herself. She only took 1 gold as a handler's fee and deposited the rest into his account, because she would be crushed under the guilt if she accepted such a hefty sum. Ulysses says that she'd like him to keep digging up ore, and Kurt mentions that he found what looks like it might be a good vein yesterday. She's happy to hear that, but shows concern at the fact he probably didn't sleep after building this entire house. Kurt clarifies that he got 6 hours of sleep, which leaves her really confused, because that means he built this log house in less time than she thought. Seeing her in that state, Kurt comes to believe he should have slept less so as not to disturb her. After all, in Golnova's group, he only slept 4 hours, following the rule that he should be the first to wake up, and to continue respecting that, he tells her that he'll make up for the hours he slept with more work, something that leaves her even more confused. Later, he takes her to the place he wanted to visit and warns her that it's better to work separately. Even if they can't see anything now, considering the topography of the mountain, there should be an ore deposit beneath them. He warns her not to dig any deeper than 50 meters, though Ulysses could never manage to do something like that. Once he's on his way, she sets out to excavate an area, and after long hours, she luckily finds something resembling a large topaz. This leads her to believe that if she asks Kurt to make it a magic crystal, she could make a lot of money, though she quickly changes her mind, not wanting to take advantage of such an innocent boy. That's when she goes to see how he's progressed, and based on what she's seen, she thinks it's entirely possible that he's already built a whole mining tunnel. Just as she arrives at the place, she confirms that he has indeed done so, and avoids showing surprise, knowing she must get used to his exploits. Ulysses enters the tunnel, seeing that she doesn't need any lamps due to luminous moss on the walls. Even if she tries not to be surprised, the tunnel is 3 times bigger than she thought, but she knows she should have expected something like that. While she freaks out, Kurt casually approaches her, but he nervously says that all he's mined have been useless rocks, and he's only mined tiny fragments of the ore he's after. When Ulysses sees the useless rocks he's discarding, Kurt explains that they're called mithril, but he's able to mine a lot of them, so they're not very valuable. Ulysses freezes upon hearing that, but Kurt tells her that they harvested so much of it in his village that they threw it away. He's very nonchalant about it, but Ulysses is internally freaking out, because mithril is a far more valuable ore than gold or even platinum. She then asks him what is the ore he said he was after earlier, and Kurt casually holds a small piece of it in his hand, saying that it's orichalcum. He says it like it's nothing, but to Ulysses is the legendary ore known as the metal of the gods, and she can't believe there's something like that in this mountain. Kurt says that they can generally mine it anywhere, and it can often be found after digging about 7 kilometers into the ground. Ulysses asks him if he really dug down 7 kilometers in 8 hours and came all the way back up to the surface. Kurt happily confirms this, so she tries her best not to get surprised again, even if it's not an easy task. However, Ulysses sees a light on the other side of the tunnel and realizes that Kurt dug right through the mountain, making a really convenient tunnel. In the end, they finish the mining in 2 days and return to Samaela. The tunnel was positioned to connect the city of Samaela to Lord Tychoon's town, so Ulysses agreed to permit those with the Traveling Merchants Guild to pass through in return for them paying a maintenance fee. Sometime later, Bandana approaches Kurt to greet him and clarifies that she is no longer part of Flaming Dragon Fang because a bunch of stuff happened. Now we see what happened in the past where Golnova is making a scene in a restaurant because he doesn't like the food, and he leaves without paying the bill. He storms out of the restaurant, and when he sees Bandana, he threatens her to go fetch Kurt so he can make food for them. Bandana calmly accepts his request, and with a swift movement, she takes Golnova's teleportation crystal and leaves. She can see the guards looking for him, but she knew he would get arrested after making such a commotion at the restaurant. Marlefus was summoned away by the church, so Flaming Dragon Fang is truly finished, but Bandana won't tell Kurt any of that because she wouldn't want her surveillance target involved in that mess. She simply tells him that she was fired too, and Kurt gets a little sad, knowing that it's definitely impossible for him to return to Flaming Dragon Fang now. Changing the subject, she assumes he's looking for work since he's standing in front of Hello Work, so she takes the opportunity to offer him a job in the workshop of an acquaintance of hers. Bandana explains that there are only 15 Atelier Meisters with official permission from the country. One of those incredible people is in trouble, so if he goes to them, it would be a huge help. After a few words of encouragement from her, Kurt eagerly accepts the job, so Bandana gives him a map. Once he's gone, she simply smiles, thinking that being the Great Sage's apprentice isn't an easy task. Now it is explained that the workshops known as ateliers are facilities that primarily produce and sell medicines, magic swords, magic devices, and so on. The head of an atelier with official permission is known as an Atelier Meister, and they're granted special rights with regards to development and distribution, along with being treated as equal to a viscount in standing. Kurt didn't know there was an official atelier in this city, but with the map Bandana gave him, he easily finds it, though it looks like a normal person's home. He knocks on the door and is greeted by a little elf who introduces herself as Michelle Lalacata, the assistant of the Atelier Meister. Kurt tells her he's here to help on Bandana's recommendation, so Michelle invites him in, but as soon as he moves a little further, he notices a nasty smell in the air. She apologizes and points out that his job will be to clean the room in front of him. She hasn't been able to get to it for 3 whole weeks now because of how busy she's been. Seeing this, Kurt realizes he was only brought here to do chores, something that makes more sense since he didn't think he'd be helping out in the workshop at all. The Atelier Meister calls her, so once Michelle leaves, Kurt gets down to work, and in just 30 minutes, he leaves the place completely spotless. He finished way too fast, so he decides to look for Michelle so she can tell him what to do. However, when Kurt enters one of the rooms, he finds a girl with a weird mark on her stomach. Kurt's a little surprised at first, but when he notices she's barely wearing clothes, he quickly apologizes and explains that he started working here today. The girl remains calm and mentions that the Atelier Meister is down in the basement. Leaving that aside, Kurt can't ignore the mark on her stomach, so she explains that it's a curse. After asking for permission, Kurt looks at the mark closely, noticing that the curse has eaten away at her so much she can't feel any pain. He can imagine her organs are rather damaged as well, and that would make eating difficult. Just then, the girl's stomach growls, so he's relieved to see she still has a proper appetite, and decides to prepare something light for her to eat. In the meantime, Mimiko and Ulysses have a serious conversation, because the mithril and orichalcum Kurt mined are worth 50,000 gold, which is something outrageous. Mimiko says that if word got out about Kurt, he would likely be kidnapped or assassinated in the worst case. She doesn't even understand how such a monstrous young boy has managed to remain hidden all this time. Ulysses mentions that she heard he was fired from Flaming Dragon Fang, but apparently their leader's a wanted man now. Mimiko asks her what she's planning to do with that boy now, and Ulysses says that she's hoping to get him set up as an Atelier Meister. Having his actions limited to some degree would be much better than him standing out all over the place. Then she plans to have him employ her as a bodyguard, but the real question is how to get him to accept that. After all, he has no awareness of his real capability, and he even undervalues himself far too much. Back to Kurt, while he's cooking something for the girl, the Atelier Meister, Lady Ophelia, finally shows up and is a little stunned to see the place so clean. He politely apologizes for using her kitchen without asking her permission, though she doesn't seem to have a problem with it. She's just a little curious as to why he's making porridge, so he explains that the girl in the room in the back said she was feeling hungry. Ophelia suddenly looks stern, and she warns him that he can't speak of that girl to anyone. She pays him for his job and asks him to come around the same time tomorrow. Kurt thanks her, but Ophelia knows that this isn't good, and she can't believe she allowed the girl to make contact with an outsider. Even if she's doing this to slow the progression of the curse, she's grown narrow-sighted, so she needs to focus. Once Kurt leaves, Ophelia visits the girl, offering her the porridge Kurt made for her. She tries to taste it for poison, but the girl stops her and says that her intuition tells her she can trust that boy. Besides, her body's already in tatters from the curse, so there's no need to use poison to kill her at this point. She has no idea who cast this curse on her, so she's had to suspect everyone as she lived her life. But today, at least, she'd like to trust somebody all the way. Ophelia decides to allow it, so the girl eats the porridge, enjoying how heartwarming it is. This relieves Ophelia, but she gets alarmed when the girl suddenly collapses down on the floor. She assumes the food was poisoned after all, which makes her feel resentment towards Kurt. However, before she can do something, the girl suddenly stands up and says that she's cured, taking her off guard. Ophelia is surprised to see the mark is gone, so the curse is fading. Even so, she's healing too fast for a broken curse, so she doesn't understand what just happened. That night, Ophelia decides to visit Mimiko's shop, saying that she wants to discuss something important. Mimiko accepts to listen to her and affirms that she can trust Ulysses, even if she might be an idiot. With that clear, Ophelia allows the girl to reveal her identity to them. As soon as they see her, Ulysses and Mimiko immediately kneel before her, wondering why the third princess, Lady Lieselot, is in a place like this. They heard that she had fallen ill, but Ophelia confesses that she was placed under a powerful curse because someone tried to assassinate her. Lady Lieselot is the only child born between His Royal Majesty and Princess Françoise, the woman he married from the Gurumaku Empire to their east. Her very existence is a symbol of peace between the two nations, meaning someone's trying to destroy those peaceful relationships. With their war against the nation to the north now over, Ophelia is sure there are those who would like to spark a new conflict. Mimiko assumes they came to her to identify who cast the curse, and assures them that they have all her support. She mentions that she's actually surprised they were able to break a powerful curse, but Lieselot clarifies that it's all thanks to a man who called himself Kurt. Both Ulysses and Mimiko freeze upon hearing that, completely shocked to know that Kurt was somehow involved in something like this, and the fact that he did something as big as breaking a strong curse. Once Ophelia explains the details about what happened, Ulysses and Mimiko understand that the porridge made by Kurt broke the powerful curse once Lady Lieselot ate it. Ulysses can't even comprehend what Kurt has done in the half-day they've been apart, and she's kind of overwhelmed by it. Leaving that aside, Mimiko mentions something more important, wanting to talk about the culprit who plotted Lady Lieselot's assassination, considering it had to be someone with connections to a curse user and capable of tampering with the wards against curses in the royal palace that places 3 people under suspicion: Sanova Ristkats, First General of the Royal Expeditionary Forces, Tristan Meinolf, Bishop of the Poland Church, and Isadora Arkmama, Third Queen of His Royal Majesty. Ophelia mentions that Tristan could have used his followers to tamper the wards on Lieselota's room. Her stepmother, Lady Isadora, is able to freely roam the royal palace, so she could have tampered with them, though she believes that it would have been impossible for Sanova. Ulysses clarifies that it isn't like that, since he has connections with the Thieves Guild as well. They're experts at intel gathering, and they should have a few men inside the royal palace too. Having this in mind, Ophelia comes to the conclusion that it's difficult to ascertain the culprit at this time, so they'll need to lay a trap. Lieselot had her 15th birthday and became an adult the other day, and custom demands that she now leaves the palace to train for a year. It's a terrible moment for something like that, which is why she'll create an atelier that doesn't exist, run by a fictional Atelier Meister, and have Lieselot train there. Then the culprit will begin trying to gather information about said Atelier Meister. If it was someone who actually existed, they would gather information in no time, but if they don't exist, then there's nothing to gather. That way, the more they try, the more they'll learn about the culprit. Ophelia clarifies that they will need to prepare some achievement to have them recognized as an Atelier Meister. Ulysses mentions that she has exactly what they need, offering a magic crystal. Ophelia is stunned when she sees it, so she asks her where on earth she found such a top-grade crystal. Ulysses tells her that Kurt made it, and that leaves her speechless, though Lieselot only admires him more. Now, we see Kurt, who has just arrived at the workshop, only to find out that it's closed. Shortly after, Michelle arrives to greet him, so he takes the opportunity to ask if anything happened. She tells him that after he left yesterday, her master suddenly left, and that's why there's nothing he can help with today. With that said, Kurt approaches the exit a little discouraged because he thinks he may have done something wrong again. He starts feeling hungry, so he decides to get something to eat, and once at the restaurant, he overhears some adventurers having a discussion. They seemingly are having problems with an urgent delivery, but the porter they need is on leave for health issues. Adding to that, they can't afford to pay the cancellation fees for turning it down, and if they get attacked by an enemy while they're all hauling it defenseless, then they're going to die for sure. Kurt sees this as the perfect opportunity, so he decides to approach them, saying that he could be their porter. He's incredibly bad at combat, but he's certain he'd prove useful as a porter, so he might be of help. The girl in the party is against his offer, but her older brother thinks differently and apologizes on her behalf. He still clarifies that being a porter for adventurers isn't easy work, especially when they're setting out to hunt iron golems that weigh over 200 kilograms. They think that he should try elsewhere, but Kurt confidently says that he can handle 200 kilograms. To prove this, he easily lifts one of their companions, and after that, he also lifts the one in the armor who's over 150 kilograms. This is clearly enough to prove his strength, so the party accepts to have Kurt as their porter. Once they leave, the guy in the armor introduces himself as Khans, a heavy warrior. The other adventurer introduces himself as Danzo, a samurai, who's the party's leader. The girl is Sina, a ranger, and the three of them form part of the party named Sakura. They have another member named Bibinoka, the porter, but it'll take a week for him to recover from his cold. Kurt also introduces himself, and he thanks them for hiring such a common person like him. This easily makes them laugh, probably because he's not common at all, even though he doesn't know it. The party finally arrives at the cave they're going to explore, but before they can go in, Kurt is suddenly attacked by a slime. Sina tells him that he just has to crush its core to defeat it, but Kurt misses it a few times, and he even accidentally stabs his own leg. Seeing that, she decides to take his weapon, easily getting rid of the slime and realizing that he truly is awful at combat. Khans tries to reassure him, saying that he can leave the fighting to the rest of them since his only job is to haul things and they need him to stay safe until that time comes. Kurt is really surprised by their reaction, seeing that they're not getting mad at him even though he failed. This is nothing like when he was with the flaming dragon fang, and just thinking about it makes him tear up. Sina gets a little worried, but Kurt quickly wipes his tears and smiles, ready to move on. Once in the cave, Sina spreads luminous moss to see clearly, and Kurt immediately notices something on the ground, though she tells him that it's just goblin waste. It's fresh, so it's highly likely they're still here now, though he doesn't have to worry, since they can defeat 1 or 2 goblins with ease. Though if they do run into a mass of goblins, then they're running before combat breaks out. The group goes deeper into the cave, until they find ruins and a single goblin. They can easily get rid of it, but the goblin calls for the others before dying, and they soon find out there's a whole colony. The party panics, but Kurt informs them that he has found a secret passage in one of the walls. Kurt enters the secret passage with Sina, but she closes the entrance before the rest of the party can follow. He doesn't understand what she's doing, but Khans tells him that it's impossible to escape from this many goblins while searching for an exit, so they have to go ahead of them. Kurt is clearly against this, but Sina tells him that he'd only hold them back since he can't even kill a slime. Her tears let him know that she also wants to fight more than anyone, but there's nothing they can do. On the other hand, Khans and Danzo are ready to die to ensure their survival, and they don't regret their decision. Sina then uses luminous moss to see if they can find an exit, but to her surprise, they only find a dangerous iron dragon golem. In another scene, Ulysses takes Liselot to the inn Kurt is staying at, but she reminds her that she can't reveal to him that she's a princess. Liselot easily accepts this, feeling happy to be just an ordinary woman to him, someone he can call Lise. Ulysses decides to call her Lisa as well, since they never know who might be listening. Once they go into the inn, they don't find Kurt anywhere, but Bandana informs them from a hidden spot that he headed into the caves east-northeast from here with the adventuring party, Sakura. Ulysses runs to see who's talking, but Bandana disappears before being seen. This leaves Ulysses thinking, since they recently finished combat training in that region, so there's a strong risk that many of the surviving goblins fled into the caves. Before leaving, Lise tells her that she's coming with her, clarifying that as a member of the royal family, she's learned enough magic to protect herself, so she won't get in her way. Ulysses gives in, but she asks her to never stray from her side, something Lisa gladly accepts. Once they get to the caves, Lisa easily identifies Kurt's footprints, and she uses long scents in the ruins to enhance her senses and find him. They hear a fight nearby, so Yulisha decides to investigate, and Lisa uses her magic to boost her physical abilities in case she needs it. Cons and Danzo are fighting for their life, and that when Yulisha comes in, slaying the goblins with her sword. On the other hand, Sina is still paralyzed before the great monsters they found, wondering if she just had to give up on this quest. She apologizes to Kurt for dragging him into this, explaining that iron dragon golems exist to bar passage to intruders. If they try to pass through, they're sure to attack them, so they're doomed, even after her brother and Danzo risk their lives to buy them time. Kurt quickly reassures her, telling her that they're going to escape, but he'll take care of those golems in their way first. He calmly approaches the golems, and Sina panics when they start attacking. However, Kurt simply jumps on them and starts attacking their weak spots, separating them in parts one by one. Once he takes them all apart, Sina is clearly confused, so Kurt explains that he's used to mining iron golems. Yulisha arrives just then, and she's as stunned as Sina is at what Kurt did to these iron dragon golems. When he sees her, Kurt runs for her help, saying that Cans and Danzo are fighting all because he's so useless. She quickly reassures him, telling him that the two of them are alive, just with a few injuries. In the meantime, she thinks that she's heard legends of a man with G-rank aptitude in combat skills who happened to have an S-rank aptitude in harvesting using a sickle to defeat a briar dragon, but she didn't think it was possible. She's clearly concerned by this, but on the other hand, Lise just praises Kurt for everything he did, showing more admiration. Once everything calms down, Cans explains that their other party member brought the job to them, but they didn't hear anything about the possibility of a horde of goblins that fled from combat training. Leaving that aside, Yulisha mentions that she has something to discuss before they return. She tells Kurt that they're creating a new atelier soon, and she's going to be working there as their personal head adventurer, so she'd like him to come work there with her. After all, she heard that he did awfully good work at Lady Ophelia's place. Kurt is clearly surprised by the offer, but he tries telling her that he's working with Sakura right now. Cans cuts him off, saying that it's an incredible offer, so he shouldn't worry about them and take it. Speaking of that, Yulisha also mentions that they're sorely lacking hands since it's a new atelier, and she was told to hire some adventurers too, so she'd like to know if they would all like to work there as well. Cans is really glad to hear this, so he gladly accepts and says that they have to get home to celebrate. Kurt then starts carrying the pieces of the iron golem, and Yulisha approaches him to ask if he'd like to get his aptitude tested once they return. After all, it's better if he knows what his aptitudes are when he starts working at the atelier. Kurt thinks that it's a good idea, since he was originally planning to do that when the technician arrived anyway. Once they come back in town, Mimiko introduces herself to Kurt, telling him that she's been put in charge of assessing his aptitudes. She heard he came recommended by Ophelia, and she saw the magic crystal he made as well, but she wanted to see him in person too. Later that night, Kurt meets the others in the inn to celebrate for the good work, and Kurt thanks Sakura for everything. In the meantime, Yulisha asks Mimiko about Kurt's results about his aptitudes. Mimiko tells her that she told Kurt he was B rank in cleaning, cooking, and mining, plus C rank in everything else. Yulisha then asks her about the actual results because she knows that what she just said isn't true at all. Mimiko clarifies that Hello Work is only capable of measuring aptitudes between G and SS rank. This means that anything beyond their ability to measure is SSS rank, and when she measured Kurt's aptitudes, they were all SSS rank. On top of that, his latent magic power was far greater than even her own. Yulisha was expecting something like that, so it doesn't surprise her, and she even had a feeling that was the case. However, those results mean that he is plenty good enough for them to set up as their secret Atelier Meister. Mimiko tells her that they are lucky she was the one to assess his aptitude. After all, if word of this ever got out, no one knows what might happen, but it surely would be a disaster. Just when she finishes saying that, she and Yulisha turn around only to see Kershal crying and covering her ears in regret, trying to mend the situation by pretending she didn't just hear everything they have been talking about. Despite her poor attempt to stay out of the situation, Mimiko makes sure she listens this time. She says one more time that all of Kurt's aptitudes were SSS rank, and Yulisha says that if anyone learned of this, it would be far too dangerous. This makes Kershal freak out even more, so she continues covering her ears, yelling that she didn't hear anything at all, so they don't have to worry. The next day, Yulisha, Lise, Kurt and the Sakura party arrange for a high-speed carriage using the Atelier Meister's special authority. After all, there aren't any teleportation stones in the frontier town they're heading to. Ulysses explains that this town was originally a military base on the border of the Demon's Land. Though a new viceroy hasn't been appointed yet, it's a crucial city that still receives aid from the Alliance. Now Sakura is going to be the personal adventurer party for a newly constructed atelier in such a crucial city. Khans thinks that it's more than they deserve, but Ulysses clarifies that it was decided with proper consideration of their abilities. While Kans and Danzo just go along with everything, Sina is still not very convinced about the situation. She believes they didn't hire them out of goodwill, but rather to silence them, so if it comes down to it, she'll be the one to protect her brother and Danzo this time. Once they arrive in town, Kurt looks really sad when he sees the walls and mentions that he worked repairing the walls around the town before, but he was fired after 3 days. Despite that, it doesn't look like they've made much progress since he was here, so Ulysses says that they might be repairing them in a different way. After that, she guides them to a large empty lot, which is the atelier that'll be their new base. Kans is a bit confused as to what they're supposed to do with an empty lot, so she explains that they just have to wait at the inn until the atelier is complete. She asks Kurt if he can build the atelier on his own, something that clearly shocks the others. Kurt tells her that he could manage a log house, but building an atelier within the day is a bit unreasonable. The members of Sakura agree to this, since it's clearly impossible to do something like that. However, Kurt happily says that he can do it in 3 days, so Ulysses tells him that he can take his time, even if it takes more than 3 days, and he can ask for any additional materials. He then gives her a list of materials, wanting her to prioritize the top ones, which are amethyst, sapphire, griffin feathers, and such. Ulysses accepts getting these things for him, saying that it'll take her at least 2 days. She reminds him to make sure he returns to the inn to eat his meals and get proper rest, and after that, she heads to the inn with the others. There, she decides to have a word with the members of Sakura, and Sina mentions that she probably wants to talk about what happened in the cave. Those iron dragon golems were defeated by Kurt, all by himself. He said he was used to mining iron golems, and he did it with just a single knife. Khans is clearly shocked by that information, and Sina demands to know who on earth is Kurt. Ulysses decides to start by introducing herself, saying that she's an adventurer who used to serve directly under the royal family. Lisa then introduces herself as well, revealing that she's Lisalot Homuros and showing a dagger with the royal crest to prove that she's the 3rd princess of this kingdom. This information leaves them in shock, so she explains that for certain reasons, she's currently hiding her identity. Sina assumes that Kurt is royalty as well, but Ulysses clarifies that he isn't royalty or even nobility. In fact, even they have no idea who that boy truly is. What they do know is that Kurt's combat skill aptitudes are all G rank, but every aptitude other than combat skills are at SSS rank. Kans is surprised to hear this, since that's the legendary rank that people question the existence of. Ulysses warns them that Kurt is completely unaware of that fact, and they've hidden his true rank from him, telling him he's C or B rank at best. The new Atelier Meister here is actually Kurt himself, but that is also a secret. Sina suddenly stands up, asking her why she's deceiving him like this, as she could just tell him the truth. Ulysses clarifies that even if they did tell Kurt the truth, he probably wouldn't believe them. Plus, they don't know what kind of evil fiend would plan to abuse and exploit Kurt's talents if they made the truth public. Sina is clearly not happy about this, and she claims that Ulysses and Lisa are the ones trying to exploit him now. This information really surprises Sina, but she still doesn't give her an answer, saying that she needs some time to think about it. She leaves after that, feeling truly conflicted because Kurt should know the truth too. That's why she heads to the empty lot looking for him. But she's shocked to see all the progress the construction of the atelier has already. Kurt clarifies that he could only do it because he's B rank in mining, but she knows that even B ranks couldn't do something like this. Sina tells him he's incredible, but he simply says that it was common enough to build a few dozen homes in a day back in his hometown, so he feels like he's still going slow. She knows such a thing isn't common at all, but she leaves that aside and asks him if he isn't upset over having work shoved onto him like this. Kurt clarifies that no one's forcing it onto him at all, and, in fact, it makes him really happy. In his last party, he was called useless, so right now he's really glad even someone like him can prove he's useful to someone. Just then, Sina remembers Ulysses' words about Kurt being too pure, so she finally understands and accepts that they're already friends. Later that day, Danzo meets with an informant who tells him about Bibinoka aka Thousand Face, the other member of Sakura who was ill. He accepts quests from villains, then infiltrates adventuring parties, bringing ruin to them countless times. It seems he accepted this latest quest with the intention of crushing Sakura, because some rival party with a grudge over them taking all their work lately had sent him after them. The informant, who's actually Bandana, gives him an envelope with all the details, and after receiving the payment, she disappears. That night, Danzo finds Bibinoka in a bar and realizes that he's already planning his next move against them. Once he realizes Danzo is there, Bibinoki flees, but Bandana makes him trip from the shadows. When Danzo finds him, Bibinoki begs for his life, trying to remind him that they're friends from the same party. Despite his pleas, Danzo unsheathes his katana and puts it against his neck, clarifying that he doesn't consider him a friend. However, he doesn't do anything to Bibinoka, and just warns him that if he ever comes near those he now trusts are friends, then he will cut him down without question. Bibinoka passes out from the shock, and after Danzo leaves, Bandana is slightly disappointed. After all, she was expecting him to properly finish off the target that could become a future obstacle. Before she can take matters into her own hands, a mysterious figure appears and takes Bibinoka away. Bandana assumes it must be someone from Phantom, the intelligence unit under Mimiko, the third-ranking royal court mage. After that, a crow brings a message to her, which contains information about Marlefis. She mentions that she feels bad for them, but her master told her to leave that woman be, so now she'll head out to Kurt's hometown. In a different scene, we see Marlefis is laying inside a huge magic circle, and she's not in her best condition, so she's clearly unable to move or escape. After that, the day finally arrives, and Kans genuinely asks Danzo if they're dreaming, and he tells him that it's both real and a dream. The two of them are now standing in front of a huge, luxurious mansion that was built in only 3 days. It is surrounded by a beautiful garden with fruit trees, and Ulysses even wonders why they're bearing fruit now, since it isn't spring yet. Lisa is just happy, and she says that starting today, this is her and Kurt's love nest. Ulysses reminds her that it's an atelier, and just then, Kurt welcomes them all, apologizing for not being able to prepare a proper welcome for them. The group is completely speechless, but he decides to show them inside, starting with the entrance. After that, he shows them that there are 2 basement floors, and the place where all of the mansion's water is created. Everyone thinks that everything is too lavish, and that he went too far, but he explains that he turned the sapphires Ulysses procured into magic crystals, and used them to create a perpetual motion engine that generates water. He also made magic crystals from quartz, and used them as illumination. The magic power is stored in the amethyst, so it should remain lit for well over a year, even if they leave it on the whole time. After that, he shows them the rooms for them to sleep in, which are really spacious and nice. He made the beds himself, using the griffin feathers to make feather quilts. Kurt then shows them the Atelier Meister's room, though he asks Ulysses if they're going to see them soon, completely unaware that he's the Atelier Meister. Ulysses quickly dodges the question, saying that he's apparently quite busy, so it sounds like he's been delayed a bit more. She changes the topic and asks him where his room is. And Kurt clarifies that he's just in charge of chores, so he figured he'd sleep in the little break area next to the kitchen. Everyone immediately protests against that, and Ulysses asks him why not use this room instead, since no one will be using it for a while anyway. Kurt is reluctant to do something like that, but Lisa insists, saying that he should sleep in this room. After 2 hours of insistence, Kurt is finally convinced to sleep in the Atelier Meister's room as the caretaker, promising to leave as soon as he arrives. Ulysses then asks him if he's able to place a barrier warding against curses around the mansion. Kurt mentions that it's probably a little difficult, so Ulysses decides to use the talismans that ward against curses which Mimiko gave them. She places the talismans all around the mansion, and lastly, she places one on the main target, Lisa's room. After putting the talisman on her door, Lisa suddenly opens the door, waiting for Kurt to sneak into her bed. Ulysses freaks out, and she asks her where she learned such a thing, but Lisa just accuses her of being jealous. This only makes her freak out even more, but Ulysses simply reminds her that Kurt is pure and innocent, so she has to be modest. The next day, Lisa completely forgets about her words, and she shows up in the kitchen with a very striking attire. Ulysses asks her what happened to modesty, since she's now wearing an absolutely shameless outfit. Kurt mentions that he also thought it was kind of odd, but Lisa told him that the outfit was commonplace in her home. Ulysses claims that it's not, but Lisa reassures her and shows her that she's actually wearing clothes. Just then, Sina enters the kitchen, and it takes her a minute to react, ignoring the whole situation to comment that she smells the nice scent of baking bread. Kurt affirms this, saying that he created an oven as well, so he can prepare fresh bread for everyone every morning. He asks them to wait in the dining room while he finishes preparing everything, and in the meantime, Yulshia stares at him in awe, thinking about what a perfect housewife he is. Once it's finally time to eat, everyone is pleased with Kurt's food, feeling really happy at the fact that they'll get to eat food this good every morning from now on. Yulshia notices that Kurt's not around, and Lisa explains that he left to go do some cleaning while carrying a rag. He said that someone had scrawled all over parts of the mansion, and he also said he'd be back soon. Yulshia immediately stands up and runs to look for him, fearing that he was talking about the wards against curses she placed on the mansions before. Mimiko said they would never go away once they were placed, but just as she thought, when Yulshia finds Kurt, he already got rid of the last ward like nothing. She lies to him and tells him it was nothing, not wanting to make him feel bad, but now she wonders what she will do, since she doesn't have any more talismans and she doesn't know if she'll be able to protect Lisa. Now we see Bishop Tristan talking to the former sister Marlefis, informing her that she has been excommunicated. After all, the party she belonged to, the Flaming Dragonfang, not only showed many failures and violence to others, but now its leader has become a wanted man. Marlefis tries to defend herself, saying that none of that has been her fault. It may be true that she unleashed lighting magic in a restaurant in the royal capital, but that was punishment for the venue serving them food worse than pig slop. Tristan cuts her off, saying that the ill repute she's earned will become a stain upon the reputation of the Poland church. Marlefis can't say anything against that, even though she knows she's been doing more than anyone else to raise the reputation of the church by joining common adventurers and performing miracles for others. Tristan clarifies that they still acknowledge her capability with magic, and because of that, if she's able to perform a simple job for them, then they promise to write off her trivial sins and grant her the rank of priest. He offers her a glass of wine from the Poland Empire's enemy, the Gurumaku Empire. Even if the wine comes from the enemy, its taste is certainly good, so Tristan invites her to drink up. Marlefis accepts the cup and takes a sip, glad to know that she wasn't wrong after all. She tells him that he can ask for anything he wants. So the bishop smiles wickedly and orders her to aid them in assassinating the third princess, Lieselot. Marlefis freezes in shock, but she soon collapses on the floor because of the wine she drank. Tristan then mentions that the wine was poisoned with a curse, and it will make her body unable to accept anything other than water, so in a month she'll likely die of starvation. This is a trial, and if she succeeds in her task, she'll be freed from her suffering and rise to priesthood. Marlefis pushes her shock aside to speak, and tells the bishop that she will offer her life up to him. Despite this, now in the present time, we see Marlefis panting on the floor, having no strength to even stand up. Just by her side, she sees another creature, which she identifies as a feared demon lord. Returning to the others, Yulshia sees that Lisa hasn't shown any abnormalities since Kurt erased the wards against curses. This makes her wonder if the enemy hasn't located her yet, or if they were unable to act for some other reason. She also comes to believe that Kurt's cooking has neutralized the curses without them realizing it, but dismisses that possibility as absurd. In any case, she knows that Mimiko and the others have already arrived in the city and deployed her web. So, if the enemy acts, they'll know immediately. Lisa mentions to Kurt that this cake has a different texture than usual, and he explains that he tried making it with rice flour today. She thanks him for the food and also tells him that if she is cursed again, she wishes he would cook for her again. Kurt is glad she liked his food so much, but lets her know she doesn't have to worry about curses anymore. This leaves them a little confused, so Yulshia asks why he's so sure, as he recently said it would be difficult to create a barrier warding against curses. Kurt agrees with her, confirming once again that he can't create a barrier to ward against curses, and he gives her his full explanation of what he's talking about. At that very moment, an enemy mage prepares with one of the church members, declaring that he will curse the third princess and kill her without fail. Just as the mage casts the curse, his body starts glowing, and Ophelia detects it thanks to Mimiko's web. In the meantime, Kurt explains that this entire mansion serves as a barrier that reflects curses, so he can't create another barrier inside of it. However, he did tweak it a little bit, and instead of having the curse attack them back, it makes them glow. After all, if he lets them strike back as is, then he'd feel bad for the person who got cursed by accident. Yulshia doesn't completely understand what he means, but she decides to at least tell Mimiko and the others about this. After she leaves, Kurt invites Lisa to go shopping in town together, because she hasn't set foot outside the Atelier since the moment they arrived. Despite his good intentions, Kurt stops talking once he sees Lisa's not in the mood, and she sadly rejects his invitation. As they speak, the fog grows thicker outside the walls of the city, and there are two people observing this, the General Alraid and Generic. Alraid mentions that he has a bad feeling about this, but Generic reminds him that the repair work on the ramparts should have been completed by now, and he served as the site foreman himself. Alraid clarifies that he had no choice. Considering how important this city is, they were concerned about enemy spies slipping in to Work on it. Later that day, the corpse of the mage who cast the curse is found by Phantom. Mimiko and the others assume that he likely failed to inflict his curse, and once they decided this light would make it easy to track him, he was killed by his allies. He's still glowing even after death, and Ophelia explains that Kurt created a powerful curse reflector. So if he were to fully cooperate with them, then this could be resolved within the day. Ulysses asks her not to do that, since she doesn't want to plunge that boy into even worse danger. Mimiko clarifies that she'll investigate the rest herself later, so she asks Ulysses to make sure Lieselot doesn't leave the atelier. Before she finishes speaking, the three of them get alarmed by the sound of the bells of the city. Just then, Alraid is informed of a monster assault, so he immediately orders the magic squad to light them up with magic. By doing that, they manage to see a huge army of skeletons marching toward the city. Mimiko is informed of this in a matter of seconds, and Ulysses fears that they're after Lisa. Before she can rush to the atelier, a member of Phantom delivers another piece of information to Mimiko. To their surprise, the huge horde of skeletons is being drawn into the western wall and disappearing. Ulysses then remembers that Kerschel told her before that Kurt finished repairing both the northern and western walls by himself. Neither General nor Alraid know what's going on, but just for a moment, Alraid wonders if this could be because of that boy who repaired the walls in just 3 days. Back to Marlefus. The Demon Lord asks her not to die yet, since the first wave has failed, but for the second and third wave, they'll be using her magic power to summon them. Marlefus can't do anything but suffer as the Demon Lord takes her magic power, and she wonders how this could be. A bishop of the church has forged a pact with an advanced demon and placed it in his service, all to kill the princess. The Demon Lord explains that these Lapita ruins were once used for summoning demons, so they're a perfect monster production area. It seems she doesn't have as much magic energy as Bishop Tristan said she did, but if he uses her soul as fuel, that should be enough to make up the difference. Just then, with tears in her eyes, Marlefus realizes that this is no trial, and she has been set up by the church. In the meantime, Kurt asks Ulysses how the city is doing right now, and she informs him that it's currently surrounded by monsters on all sides. Even if they wanted to call for reinforcements, the flying monsters interfere, so they can't. Lisa mentions that she's worried about everyone in Sakura since they're still gone after leaving to go hunt trolls. Ulysses knows that, according to the information they received from Phantom, the monsters are originating from the Lapita ruins to the west. Apparently, the knights are working on a strategy, but they can't act without great caution against numbers like these. She mentions what happened to the horde of skeletons when they touched the walls, and Kurt explains that getting purified when they touch the walls is a common occurrence in his village. Ulysses isn't even surprised by this, knowing that Kurt was the one who repaired the walls. However, if they target the walls without a purifying effect, then they won't be able to hold out. Just then, she comes up with an idea, so she asks Kurt and Lisa to make sure they don't leave the atelier, informing them that she's going to clean up the ruins to the west. Kurt asks her to let him go with her, but Ulysses quickly rejects his offer, saying that it's dangerous with so many monsters outside the walls. He admits that she has a point, since he's not any use in combat, but Ulysses discreetly reminds him that they still have that Scrawler to worry about too, so he has to stay with Lisa. This is clearly a lie to make him feel better, but it works, since Kurt's expression immediately lights up, and he tells Lisa that he'll be here with her. With that solved, Ulysses enters her room to take a box full of special objects with her, having a good plan in mind. Later that day, Alraid finishes discussing what they must do, knowing that the monsters are slower during the day, so they'll set out at once. Before that, Ulysses arrives with Mimiko and Ophelia to say hi, and Alraid quickly recognizes her. She introduces him to the other two and informs him that the third princess, Lieselot, is in this city. That information is kind of concerning, so Alraid suggests diverting soldiers to guard the princess. Mimiko tells him that it's all right, since her intelligence squad is protecting Her Royal Highness. Without losing more time, Ulysses says that she has a plan, and she wants to ask him and his men to act as decoys and draw the monster's attention. In that time, she'll head to the ruins in the west and cut off the source generating these monsters. Alraid mentions that it's a little reckless of her to do that alone, but Ophelia explains that they have a secret weapon, and it's a very special one. She shows him what seems to be an ordinary magic crystal and tells him that she can guarantee its effectiveness. Alraid accepts under one condition, wanting to join them in storming these ruins. Ulysses is a bit surprised by his offer, since it would be reassuring to have his strength with her, but he's the very general. He clarifies that his vice-general, Generic, will lead the decoy squad and draw away the monster horde, so they'll be able to strike the enemy's main camp. Generic protests, saying that it's too dangerous and they should be the ones joining the assault. Alraid clarifies that serving as a decoy is an important mission that's plenty dangerous too, and no one else can do it. With that said, he speaks to Mimiko and Ophelia, saying that he'd like to request their aid too. Mimiko accepts, so Alraid orders all units to go to their positions, and Generic decides to drink a cup of water with him, saying that this isn't their usual parting drink because there won't be any final farewells between them. In the meantime, Kurt doesn't look too happy for having to stay in the Atelier. He remembers that the old man in his hometown always said pouring his heart into pounding iron could give him a chance to reflect on himself. Danzo's blade had an incredible edge to it, so he wonders if he could make a smaller version of that. As he works on creating a new weapon, Kurt wonders what he can do, since he got fired from his job not long ago, and while Sakura called him their friend, he wasn't of any use in combat. While he overthinks, Ulysses heads to the entrance of the city and throws a single magic crystal to clear the way of any monsters. Everyone, even herself, is surprised to see the sheer power of one magic crystal, since it's capable of purifying demons and undead in an instant. Ulysses' plan starts immediately, and just as they leave the city, Kurt finishes the sword, but he says that it's a failure. He heard his blacksmithing was B rank, but this sword is C at best, or even D rank work. Just then, Lise enters the room, and she's clearly impressed by the sword he created. Kurt clarifies that he was lost in thought and wound up imbuing it with magic, so if she holds the drawn blade over her head, it'll activate a spell. That aside, Lise thinks it's a really beautiful sword, so Kurt tells her that she can have it. He knows that she must be forcing that smile, and it makes him wonder if it's okay to keep pretending not to notice Lisa's real feelings. After thinking about it for a moment, he decides to ask her directly, wanting to know if there's someone coming after her. Lisa is taken by surprise, and she confesses that she feels guilty about it, since it's her fault that he and Ulysses are facing so much trouble. Even now, Ulysses and the others are risking their lives to reach the ruins in the west. Kurt asks her if that's where the person targeting her is, and Lisa says that it most likely is. He then remembers that Ulysses mentioned going there to clean up, and it reminds him of something that happened long ago. Gulnova wrote his name on these ruins, even though Marlafis tried to stop him. This makes Kurt realize that those ruins are the perfect spot for people who like to scrawl on things, and according to what Ulysses said, the one after Lisa is the scrawler, Scrawlinky. He feels bad, knowing that he can't fight to protect the ones he cares about, and he knows that Lisa's been struggling with this sense of powerlessness, just like he has. That's why he decides to go with her to clean up those ruins in the west, though this gives Ulysses a bad feeling while she fights monsters with Alraid. Lise prepares in her room to head out, and as her eyes land on the blade Kurt gifted her, she thinks about that special ability that activates by holding it over her head. She doesn't know what kind of spell it casts, and when she tries holding it over her head, nothing happens. On the other hand, Ulysses continues fighting monsters with Alraid, who informs her that they almost arrive at the ruins. Fortunately, the vast majority of monsters have been pulled away by Generic's diversionary force. They must be running low on their magic crystals, and they're almost out too, so they need to find the source of these monsters fast. Alraid receives a fatal wound, so Ulysses hurries to aid him, but is attacked by a bunch of monsters at once. Thankfully, Sakura shows up at just the right moment, and Kans takes care of the monsters attacking Ulysses. Danzo saves Alraid and explains that they're the adventurers employed by the Atelier. Sina then speaks up, informing them that she's found the source of the monsters and they're coming from this building just up ahead. She explains that the top is crumbled apart, so they're either deep inside or underground. Ulysses decides to use one of the magic crystals to get rid of the monsters surrounding them, and they finally get to the ruins. Ulysses gives Alraid something to drink, saying that it's just ordinary soup from medicinal herbs. He gladly accepts it, but his shock is huge when he realizes that his terrible wound has healed like it was nothing. Of course, Kurt is most likely the one who made that soup, but she decides not to say anything about it. More enemies come out of the ruins, but Kans and Danzo take care of them, saying that they can hold the monsters off here. Ulysses thanks them, and while Sakura stays behind fighting the monsters, she and Alraid finally enter the ruins. In the meantime, Marlafis is still laying inside the magic circle, knowing that if that demon keeps draining her power like this, she'll die. The Demon Lord manages to see all the people fighting against his monsters, using the magic crystals. He doesn't seem bothered by it, since he can finally have a bit of fun, so he decides to go greet them himself. When Ulysses and Alraid find the source of the monsters, she uses a magic crystal to fix the problem. However, just then, the Demon Lord finds them. So they easily assume he's the one who has been summoning those monsters, and the boss they have to defeat. Without wasting any time, Ulysses runs toward the Demon Lord and uses one of the magic crystals against him, just to realize seconds after that this did nothing to defeat him. The Demon Lord admits that her attack was impressive, and it would have been dangerous if he didn't have infinite life. Alraid tries to lay a second hit, but the Demon Lord doesn't even dodge his attack, and his wound easily heals in a matter of seconds. This is all thanks to Marlafis, who is now suffering inside the magic circle as the Demon Lord takes away more of her power. The Demon Lord tells them that he's been watching their fight so far and they're not half bad, so they can have a look as well. He then shows them Generic and his diversionary force fighting the monsters to protect the town. Allraid immediately claims that none of his frontier knights will ever bow before a demon. And just because of that, the Demon Lord decides that he didn't send enough monsters, so he'll increase the numbers, assuring that they will end up destroying the less defended gate. The information is kind of alarming, so Ulysses and Allraid quickly try to attack again, beheading the Demon Lord. Unfortunately, that monster just picks up its head and puts it back in place like nothing happened. The Demon Lord claims that he'll slaughter all of the knights, then drag the princess out of town, letting the two of them watch as the princess gets ripped apart. Ulysses slightly freaks out, so Allraid asks her to keep it together, because defeating this thing is their shortcut to solving all of this. She knows that's true, but deep down, she's still worried, wondering how in the world they're going to do it. After all, they already beheaded him and ran his heart through, but he just went back to normal. Even Kurt's magic crystals couldn't completely defeat him, and if the ramparts are broken through, they'll be doomed. The Demon Lord laughs at her expression, enjoying her look of despair and asking her to give up on everything. In the meantime, Marlefus has already given up. Even if she wishes she could just erase this magic circle, she knows everything is over, and she doesn't even have the strength to run. Her hunger is at its limit too, and that makes her crave Kurt's home cooking at least one more time. Just then, Marlefus hears Kurt's voice, and she's pretty sure it's just her mind playing tricks on her in her last moments. However, soon enough, she realizes it's not a hallucination, and Kurt literally emerges from underground. Even if she can't move at all, Marlefus is beyond shocked when she sees that the third Princess Lieselot is with him. That makes her think that Kurt's already uncovered the fact that she's involved with the princess's assassination, and that's why he brought her here, hoping to persuade her away from it. Lisa notices that Kurt already knows the woman, so he tells her that she's Sister Marlefus, a member of the party he's indebted to. Marlefus informs him that she's now an ex-sister, since she's been excommunicated from the Poland church. He realizes that's why she was after Lisa, and Marlefus thinks that he's feigning ignorance, as he probably already knows everything, and it's all because of Bishop Tristan. Before she can finish her sentence, Kurt confidently says that she started scrawling on things here and there in order to vent her frustration at being excommunicated from the church. A long silence follows after that, as Marlefus is completely speechless and baffled by how ridiculous that sounds. On the other hand, Lieselot makes sure to remember very well the name of the Bishop Marlefus mentioned, ignoring the absurdity he just said. Kurt confidently goes on, saying that that's why Marlefus has scrawled all over Lisa's room and left such a big scrawl in these precious ruins. He truly believes that she was the person behind Scrawlinky all along, even though it was something Ulysses just made up. While Kurt is clearly disappointed in her, Marlefus is still speechless, and Lisa ignores everything, simply feeling happy to see that he's getting angry for her sake. Leaving that aside, Kurt asks Marlefus for Ulysses, and she informs him that she's one floor up. Before he can leave, Lisa tells him that she'll go look for Ulysses, and she asks him to clean up the scrawling surrounding Marlefus. He gets a little worried about Lisa leaving on her own, but she reminds him that she has the sword he gave her to defend herself. Kurt decides to let her go, and Marlefus can't believe that he's letting the princess go off by herself when people are after her life. She wonders how foolish this boy can be, seeing as he prepares a mop to clean the floor. After all, a magic circle made by a demon lord is not something he can just rub away. Marlefus is blown away once more when Kurt simply breaks the magic circle with a mop, something that shouldn't be possible. Just then, the demon lord senses that the magic circle has been broken, so he quickly dodges the next attack. Ulysses and Allraid immediately catch up on the fact he has dodged their attack for the first time, and that means that his wounds aren't healing now. She tries to reach for a magic crystal, so the demon lord panics and kicks it away, saying that he can't fool around any longer. Just then, Lieselot suddenly shows up, apparently happy to have found Ulysses. The demon lord seems pleased to see the princess, so Ulysses immediately tries to intervene. However, she freezes as she sees Lisi falling on the floor before her eyes after getting stabbed. The demon lord laughs maniacally, claiming that the pact is complete now and that she was an utterly foolish princess. If she had remained quiet in town, she might have lived a little longer, but she just made the job easier for him. Before he can finish speaking, Lisa suddenly asks him which one of them is the fool. Her body turns into butterflies, and she then appears behind Ulysses. The demon lord is clearly confused, wondering if it was all an illusion, but he quickly discards the idea, since her presence, her smell, and even her body heat were all the same. Lisa explains that it's because of the sword of confusion, created by their Atelier Meister, Butterfly. Lise tried using it earlier, and just when she thought nothing happened, she got truly surprised when she saw a copy of herself. The demon lord tries to attack her again, but her body turns into butterflies one more time. Lisa moves to where the magic crystal is, and she immediately breaks it, finally defeating the demon lord. In the meantime, Kurt gets a little confused when he hears a scream coming from the other floor. Marlefus can't believe her ears, since if they defeated the demon lord and the summoner is gone, then the monsters he summoned should also disappear. Once the demon lord completely perishes, all the monsters are gone, and Ophelia knows that it means the operation was a success. Despite everything turning out okay, Ulysses immediately approaches Lise and asks her what she's doing here, when she clearly told her to stay in the Atelier. Lisa now looks guilty, but she explains that she had to do something, and she couldn't just keep hiding away. Ulysses finally calms down, but she expresses how worried she was, since she thought she had died. Lise apologizes, but Ulysses reassures her, saying that it's not something she should apologize for. After all, she saved them. Alraid agrees, and he kneels before Lise to tell her that if it weren't for her help, they would both be dead by now, so he's forever in her debt. Lisa asks him to stop the formalities, since just one look at the awful wounds covering them is enough to let her know how tough the battle was. So, she's the one who should be thanking them. She properly thanks them for protecting her and the city, assuring that she'll prepare a reward worthy of their effort. Alraid accepts that, saying that he'd like to have some liquor to drink with his men once they return, to celebrate their victory. In the meantime, Marlefus finally stands on her feet once again, but even though the magic circle is gone, the curse upon her hasn't been changed, and she's currently in an alarming state of starvation. Just then, Kurt offers her some food he brought with him for lunch, saying that she can have it. Marlefus knows that she'll just spit it up after eating thanks to the curse. But even so, she thinks it's fine, since she'll get to eat Kurt's home cooking at the end. She accepts the food, and just one bite is enough to make her feel pure bliss. A few seconds later, she's surprised to notice that she doesn't feel like vomiting at all, so she continues eating and finds out that the curse is gone. Marlefus realizes that this was Kurt's power, and they were protected by him all along without even knowing it. She starts crying, now knowing that they took Kurt's kindness for granted the whole time. Marlefus apologizes, and Kurt just tells her that he's glad that she learned her lesson, and all the scrolls are gone now. Ulysses and Lise finally come back, but two members of Phantom suddenly emerge from underground. Kurt is a little startled by their presence, so Lisa explains that they're just men who have come to arrest the wanted scrawler. Marlefus freaks out when she's taken away, wondering if Kurt will defend her, but he simply tells her that he'll bring the grape bread she loves when he visits her in jail. This is clearly not what she wanted, which pisses her off a bit, but she can't say anything else before they take her away for good. Lise then approaches Kurt, clearly happy to have helped him clean up the place, even if it was just a silly task for them. Ulysses just stares at them, unable to believe that those two kids saved her life. She's the Atelier's personal head adventurer, but she's got her work cut out for her. Just like that. Even so, she feels glad that everything turned out alright, so she decides that it's time to go back home. Kurt simply feels really happy now, since he now has friends to go home with and a home to go to, and he's grateful from the bottom of his heart for that. That night, everyone enjoys a feast together, and Kurt is glad to know that they truly like his cooking. Lisa properly introduces Alraid to Kurt, saying that he's the head of the knights and the army general running this city. Alraid asks him if he has taken a liking to this city, and Kurt quickly affirms this, saying that everyone's kind and the vegetables are delicious. He mentions that it must be all thanks to his governing, and that makes Alraid laugh a bit, and he clarifies that Margrave Tycoon helps cover where he falls short. Just then, a bunch of fireworks explode in the sky, and Kurt comments that he thought everyone would enjoy them, so he prepared some for the night. The knights suddenly realize that their wounds are fully healed, and Kurt clarifies that it's common to hear about wounds recovering when eating a good meal. This leaves everyone in shock, since this clearly isn't common for anyone but Kurt. In another scene, we see a demon apparently sealed inside a magic circle, and she receives a visit from Margrave Tycoon, but it's clear it's not the first time. We now see a part of Kurt's childhood in the past, a decade ago. He's running through his village like any kid would, but he stops when he sees a girl with horns sitting on a rock. Kurt greets her in a friendly way, knowing that she's the daughter of the traveling merchant in town. Despite his numerous efforts to talk to her, Kurt doesn't get a word in return from the girl, which makes him feel kind of sad. Before he starts crying, the girl finally speaks, explaining that her father told her not to talk to people from Host Village. He said the villagers are a little strange, and he doesn't want her to pick up any strange influences from them. The girl introduces herself as Hildegard and clarifies that she's just talking to herself, just so she doesn't get in trouble. Kurt does the same to introduce himself, but at the end, they end up going on a walk together, a little further to the place where rainbow-colored flowers bloom. Hildegard gets a little excited, and she eats some berries she found on the way. However, in just a matter of seconds, the little girl collapses on the floor, and Kurt notices she ate poisonous parpla berries. Fortunately, he knows exactly what to do, so he rushes to find a medicinal herb named Panacea, and he quickly makes an antidote with that to save her. After making the antidote, Kurt puts it in his mouth to transfer it into hers while she's unconscious. Just then, we're back in the present time, and Ulycia wakes him up from his dream. Kurt realizes he's in a carriage with the members of Sakura and Ulycia, heading to a village that asked for their assistance. After they arrive, Ulycia is informed that the problem in the village is a dire shortage of water. An old man explains that at this rate, all of their crops will wither up. Seeing a map, Ulycia mentions that there's a large reservoir in the neighboring village. There are waterways connecting it to them, too, so they could have them share some with them. The old man tells her that they have tried negotiating for that many times, but they just won't listen to them. That's why they thought to seek aid from the powerful authority the Atelier Meister holds. With that information, Ulycia returns to meet up with the others, but she's surprised to see only Danzo. He tells her that the rest of the group is up on the hill, since the old man in charge of the birds has a strained back, so they want to help him care for them while she's discussing things. Ulycia doesn't see any problem with that, so she lets him know that she's now going to the neighboring village to negotiate. Once she gets there, she finds out that the reservoir is nearly out of water too, so they can just pray for rain at this point. While she's trying to comfort an old lady, a couple of villagers arrive to inform them about some bad news on the top of the hill. Ulycia hurries to get there, and she's shocked to find a huge lake, since it doesn't make sense when the villagers are claiming to be short of water. Khans and Sina are also in shock, but they explain that this lake wasn't here until moments ago. At that moment, Kurt runs up to her to greet her, and Ulycia already has an idea of what happened. He explains that he was taking care of some birds, but the waterfowl were parched, so he drew up some water from the aquifer. Before she can say anything, the old man and the lady from before fall on their knees in relief. They thank Ulycia, saying that they can't believe she resolved their problem in such an incredibly odd way. Ulycia gets a little overwhelmed, not knowing how to explain what happened, and Kurt isn't even aware that he's the one who fixed the issue, so he just admires Ulycia for completing their request so fast. The group leaves the village with a lot of thank you gifts, including a basket of a wide variety of eggs. Kurt decides that he'll use these eggs to make them some delicious food today, something like omelets and some pancakes for dessert. Ulycia mentions that Lisa is still out, since she had to deliver a report on the monster Assault from the other day, so she's gone to see the Lord of Tycone. In another scene, we see Lys and Alraid are having a meal with Margrave Tycone, who's very honored that the princess herself paid him a visit. Lys clarifies that she's not here as the third princess, but as a representative of the Atelier Meister. Deep down, she knows Margrave Tycone possesses authority equal to a duke, but the truth is that he's forced to rely on others for his public finances. He has connections to both the royal family and the Gurumaku Empire, so he's trying to win her over to further solidify his authority. Lisa maintains a polite attitude, but she can already see through Margrave's scheming antics. Margrave mentions that he's heard some stories saying that they used magic stones capable of wiping out monsters in a 500-meter radius. Lys knows he's trying to dig up information on the Atelier Meister, but she's not letting Kurt become this man's prey. That's why she tells Margrave that these were just rumors, and they certainly didn't possess that much power. The man doesn't seem very pleased with her answer, but he leaves that aside and asks her if she's aware that the town she's in currently has no name. Lisa confirms this, saying that it's general custom for the viceroy to name a town after they've been appointed, so the town hasn't been named yet. Margrave tells her that he's been having great difficulty settling on the viceroy for it. The frontier town is the town closest to the land of demons in his domain, so it comes with great danger. Alraid, he comments that it probably would be a challenge for him to stand above knights like them with their quirks. Margrave explains that he was thinking he'd like to appoint this Atelier Meister of them as the frontier town's viceroy. Lisa is a little shocked to hear his play, knowing that once the Atelier is appointed viceroy, he'll have to appear in public. However, since Kurt doesn't realize he's the Atelier Meister, that will be a huge problem. That's why she tells Margrave that she can't decide that matter on her own, so she can't give him an answer. Margrave reminds her that she's here representing the Atelier Meister, so she should have been entrusted with full authority to arrange any agreements between them. Not to mention, this Atelier Meister saved the lives of many knights in the last battle, so he doubts that any of the knights would be opposed to appointing this Atelier Meister as their viceroy. Lisa gets cornered now, and if she knew this would happen, she would have spoken to the general about Kurt ahead of time. She can just stare at Alraid, silently begging him not to say anything uncalled for. However, without a hint of a doubt, Alraid quickly agrees with Margrave, saying that his knights would gladly welcome the Atelier Meister as their viceroy. Lise freaks out and tries to protest against that, but Margrave cuts her off to ask her if she's suggesting there's some personal flaw that would make the Atelier Meister unsuitable as viceroy. Hearing something like that ticks her off, so Lisa clarifies that it's no exaggeration to say that there's no one more talented in this whole nation, or even in this whole world, than that man. Just after saying that, she realizes about her mistake, but it's too late to take her words back, so the decision of Margrave is made. Once she returns to the Atelier, she apologizes to Ulysses for what she's done, and they try to think about ways to solve the issue. Lise asks about Kurt, and Ulysses tells her that he's currently focused on child rearing. That makes her freak out immediately, so Ulysses clarifies that it was a joke, but she explains that apparently one of the waterfowl eggs that they received was fertilized and close to hatching, so he's tending to it right now. Knowing Kurt, it'll probably give birth to some waterfowl that lays golden eggs or something, and they couldn't be surprised. In another scene, we see Mimiko complaining about the endless reports she's getting. Ophelia mentions that she heard that they found Bishop Tristan dead in the Poland church's cathedral. Mimiko thinks he was assassinated, since a different person was the one who died and had their soul sold off to pay for summoning that demon lord. That means that Poland church turned him into a scapegoat. Ophelia asks her what she did with Marlefus, and Mimiko mentions that Kurt wanted to visit her, so she didn't kill her. As they speak, Mimiko receives another report that says that an egg that Kurt received has hatched, and what came out was not what they expected. Back at the Atelier, Lisa and Ulysses meet with Kurt to see what has hatched, but they are very confused to see a child in his arms. He claims that this little girl was born, so they immediately assume that she's now Kurt's daughter. After calming down, Ulysses tries to assess the situation with everyone, since what came out of the egg seems to be a little 3-year-old girl. Kurt explains that she already looked like this the moment she was born, and just then, the little girl calls him dad. Despite everyone's shock, Ulysses tries to remain calm and tells Kurt that human children aren't born from eggs, so he has to understand that this girl isn't a normal person. This girl is most likely some variety of monster, and she probably made herself resemble him as a means of lowering his guard and gaining the affection of the one who helped her hatch. She asks him to hand her over, but Kurt is reluctant to do so, and he asks her what will happen to the little girl if he does. Without hesitation, Ulysses tells him that she'll kill her, and she tries to pry the kid out of his arms. Kurt immediately tries to stop her, saying that he just can't believe this little girl could be a bad monster, so he'll take responsibility for her. Ulysses doesn't budge, knowing that she's doing the right thing, but just at that moment, the little girl grabs her face and calls her mom. Ulysses' heart immediately warms up, and in her head, she sees the picture of her and Kurt forming a happy family with this kid as their daughter. Lisa suddenly appears behind her with a frightening expression, reminding her that this girl is not a child of her and Kurt. Without hesitation, Lisa takes the little girl in her arms, and she also calls her mom, making her weak. The next to hold the kid is Sina, and the little girl calls her sister, warming up her heart. Ulysses now feels conflicted, since she has to get rid of that girl, but Kanz tries to reassure her, saying that Sakura will take care of her, and they'll raise her to be a good girl. Sina agrees, assuring that she certainly won't turn out to be a bad girl if they're taking care of her. The little girl returns to Kurt's arms, and Ulysses can't say no anymore, so the next problem they have is deciding on a name for her. Ulysses and Lisa soon start fighting over the name, since they both want a combination of their own names with Kurt's. Before things escalate, the little girl seems worried, and she asks them if they're fighting. Both Lisa and Ulysses calm down, and they quickly comfort her to ease her worries. Kurt notices how happy they look, and realizes that this little girl is really mysterious, since she soothes everyone's spirits and brings them all together. That's why he suggests naming her Akuri, since it means area, and he figured it could mean she's the line connecting the 3 points that are them. Ulysses and Lisa like the idea, and the little girl gladly accepts her new name. That night, Akuri sleeps with Ulysses, but a member of Phantom approaches them while they sleep. Before they can do anything, Ulysses opens her eyes and offers them an envelope with Akuri's hair and saliva, and asks them to pass it on to Mimiko. The next day, Kurt finishes building a whole room for Akuri, with a cute play area perfect for the little girl. Despite how nice it is, Ulysses knows that this is also a prison for Akuri, with no windows and mithril plates on all sides so it can't be opened from inside. She feels kind of sorry for making Kurt build a room like this, but she knows it was needed. It might be harsh, but at least until she hears back from Mimiko, she can't let Akuri out of this room. Lisa and Akuri are also forbidden from making contact, and Sina will be the one to take care of her in the meantime. Akuri notices that Ulysses and Kurt are leaving, so she tries to go with them to play. Kurt apologizes and kindly explains that they have work to do, so she'll have to play with Sina until they get back home. Akuri quickly understands, so she has no problem to agree, and Kurt leaves the atelier with Ulysses. She notices that Kurt looks kind of sad, so she tries to cheer him up by saying that they have to finish their work quickly to play with Akuri soon. Kurt is excited to hear that, but at that moment, they can hear the voice from a child in the back of the carriage. They stop to see what it is, and when they open the door of the carriage, they are equally shocked to see Akuri just sitting there. They can't comprehend how she got there, but Ulysses notices a member of Phantom in disguise, so she goes to them to ask them to take a message to the atelier. In the meantime, Kurt finds himself overthinking about everything, feeling like he's just causing trouble for everyone with his decisions and his selfishness. After all, if this girl does turn out to be a monster, then he won't be able to do anything about it. When Ulysses comes back, she notices his worries, so she reassures him and says that neither of them were wrong about the girl. No one knows how it will really play out in the end, but they should be able to put in the effort to help it end up being a good thing. Her words manage to make him feel better, so Kurt decides that he has to think about the future and he has to do everything he can, one thing at a time. Just then, an old man appears out of nowhere, pointing at Kurt and Akuri with his cane, saying that they have to defeat the Demon King and save the world. Having no clue of what he's talking about, Kurt and Akuri simply agree to do so. Ulysses quickly stops Kurt and Akuri from doing something reckless, warning them that this wasn't what the job was about. Just then, another woman shows up, apologizing for her father's behavior, as he always wanted to be one of those prophets who say ominous things. He's been getting a little senile lately, so he's always saying such things. The lady informs them that she's the client, and the old man is her father-in-law. She mentions that she was waiting for them, though she wasn't expecting a newlywed couple to come out here. Kurt and Ulysses are completely taken off guard by that comment, since Akuri's presence clearly led them to some misunderstanding. Akuri happily says that Kurt is her father and Ulysses is her mother, which obviously doesn't help the situation. Kurt gets a little nervous, worried that Ulysses will get mad about this confusion. However, Ulysses is speechless, still in shock and blushing bright red at the idea of Kurt being her husband. Leaving that aside, the lady explains that the pigs on their farm haven't been eating their feed lately. Kurt mentions that the weather's been fairly hot recently, so they might have some heat exhaustion. He says that he'll prepare some feed that relieves heat exhaustion, so the lady thanks him and decides to take a walk with her father. Before getting to work, Kurt notices that Ulysses hasn't moved from her spot since they got there, which makes him wonder if she's still mad. Unlike what he thought, Ulysses is still stunned in place, thinking about her and Kurt being newlyweds. She tries to snap out of it and convince herself that she's not harboring any naughty feelings toward Kurt, since he's just the man she needs to protect. Despite knowing that it's just her job, when Kurt smiles at her, Ulysses wonders why her chest aches so much. After Kurt and Akuri finish feeding the pigs, Ulysses notices a huge dragon flying right over them, so she quickly runs towards them to protect them. However, Kurt quickly stops her and asks her to sheath her sword. Ulysses panics, but the dragon simply lands to eat the feed Kurt prepared, and he explains that in rural areas, it's pretty common for dragons to show up and ask for a share. That's obviously not common for Ulysses, but she tries to calm down and notices the scent of blood nearby. She cautiously explores their surroundings and finds the member of Phantom that was guarding Kurt on the floor. Ulysses hears a noise, so she immediately unsheathes her sword to fight. The sound of swords clashing quickly alarms Kurt, who runs to see if Ulysses is okay. She asks him to take Akuri and run away, but the enemy demands that he hand over the child. Kurt recognizes the woman as a dragon hunter, but Ulysses knows that it isn't like that, since what she's sensing is much more concerning. Once again, she asks him to go immediately, and even though Kurt is still hesitant, the dragon from before grabs him by his neck and takes him away. Ulysses is a little stunned to know that he tamed a dragon, even when it's said they're never friendly toward people, but she couldn't expect less from someone who's an SSS rank in all but combat skills. The woman doesn't give her a chance to think, attacking her without mercy, so Ulysses tries to defend herself. However, she soon notices how strong this woman truly is, and receives a direct blow that knocks her down. As the enemy approaches her, Ulysses knows that she can't keep this on, so she creates a distraction to gain distance, quickly standing back up. Once she has the opportunity, she asks the woman if she's looking for the child dragon or Akuri. The woman tells her that knowing won't do her any good once she's dead, and after that, she prepares to attack again. Ulysses realizes that this woman won't even let her buy time, so she tries to block the next blow, but loses her sword in the process. The woman attacks her, and while she's on the floor, she approaches Ulysses to finish her. Ulysses waits for the right moment, and when the enemy's close enough, she throws a magic crystal at her. Out of reflex, the woman cuts the crystal with her sword, making it explode instantly. The place ends up completely destroyed, which proves once again how impressive the magic crystals Kurt makes are. Ulysses is sure that this is the end of the fight, but just then, a sword emerges from the ground. the woman simply comes out of the ground, looking slightly different, as she now has horns. A feeling of dread invades Ulysses when she realizes that this woman is a demon. With their overwhelming magical power and physical abilities, they're mankind's natural enemy, but she doesn't understand why there's one here. After all, in the last century, a demon has never shown itself before a human. The demon woman mentions that a wound this deep was unexpected, and she even dispelled her transformation spell, so there's no wonder she was able to beat a demon lord. Ulysses is surprised that this woman knows they defeated a demon lord, because that means she's been watching them since before the city was attacked. That dragon definitely isn't the child she was referring to, and that makes her think that she could be after Kurt. Ulysses is cornered, since she's already used everything she could use as a weapon, and she can just hope Kurt hurries back to the frontier town. Sakura, Lisa, and everyone else are there too, and eventually the other members of Phantom will notice. Just when she's about to give up, Kurt returns on the dragon, so Ulysses cries and freaks out, wondering why he's coming back alone. She assumes he's planning to fight with the dragon, since it's true dragons have tremendous combat strength, but Kurt's combat abilities are non-existent. Just as she's thinking about that, Kurt suddenly falls off the dragon, landing onto a tree. When he reaches the ground, Ulysses hurries to scold him, asking him why he came back. Kurt explains that he was just trying to escape, and just then, the ground starts shaking. Ulysses gets a little confused by the sound, but her confusion increases when she sees a stampede of pigs approaching. The two of them hold on to one pig, and Kurt clarifies that Akuri's waiting for them somewhere safe. Ulysses asks him if it's common for people in his village to pick fights while riding a dragon with someone who well outclasses them, but he obviously tells her it isn't. It's his first time doing something this reckless, though it's not just common for a man to do something reckless to protect a woman precious to him. Ulysses gets a little flustered by his words, but deep down, she knows that when Kurt says she's precious to him, he just means that she's a precious friend or ally. She knows that very well, but she can't help feeling like that makes her both happy and sad at the same time. She doesn't understand that, and she doesn't know why she constantly minds every little thing Lisa does or why her chest aches every time. Ulysses knows that she just has to admit it already, the fact that she has fallen hopelessly in love with Kurt. Just as she's accepting her feelings, a huge explosion knocks them to the ground. The demon got rid of all the pigs with her flames, and now it looks like they're her next target. Ulysses decides to borrow Kurt's dagger, and she asks him not to move from his spot, no matter what. Despite her wounds, she assures him that she won't die, standing back up to fight. Ulysses thanks Kurt while she walks towards the demon, because she had given up on surviving, but he never gave up on keeping her alive. That's why she won't give up anymore either, and she's going to fight with everything she has. The demon throws her attack, so Ulysses raises Kurt's dagger over her head, ready to cut away through those flames, using magic slashing. It's a secret art of cutting through the opponent's spell to negate it, and she's never succeeded in doing it before, but she has no choice now. Ulysses tries to use magic slashing, but the flames don't go away, which makes her think that it didn't work. Just then, Akuri suddenly jumps on her head to protect her, and the magic spell is dispersed. However, Ulysses realizes that the demon scattered the spell herself before it hurt the child. Before she can ask her anything, the demon coughs blood and flees, but when Ulysses tries to go after her, her body finally collapses. Kurt immediately catches her, and before she completely passes out, he gives her some medicine. That way, Ulysses can stay conscious. So she thanks him for saving her and assures that she's okay. When she sees Akuri, Ulysses snaps out of her haze to ask her why she fell down from above her. Kurt clarifies that she didn't fall or fly, she just suddenly appeared there, so it was like she used a teleportation crystal. Ulysses ponders over that, knowing that many mages have been researching in hopes of creating a teleportation spell, but she's heard their work still remains incomplete. Anyone who possesses a teleportation crystal can use it to transfer between places where teleportation stones have been established, but Akuri teleported without any teleportation stones. Ulysses asks Akuri if she can do that again, but when the little girl tries, she just can't do it. On the other hand, Kurt is still thinking about the demon from earlier, but he realizes that they need to herd the pigs back to the farm. After doing so, the pigs recover in no time, and the lady from the farm is happy to see them so healthy. Ulysses mentions that one of the neighboring farms helped Kurt before, so he's off giving them his regards. When we see Kurt, he's flying on the dragon from before, but they suddenly change direction because of something the dragon noticed. Ulysses heads back to the frontier town with Akuri in a carriage, so she asks her if she popped that fireball earlier. Akuri tells her she didn't, so Ulysses confirms that the demon canceled the spell herself. She recalls her going pale when she was looking at them back then, but she can only imagine the woman was trying to avoid hitting Akuri with the spell when she suddenly appeared. Ulysses isn't sure, so she needs more information, and she definitely needs to know more about Akuri and if she can really use teleportation magic. She decides to leave all these questions for later, simply being thankful to be alive right now because she almost truly died in that fight. Just then, Kurt unexpectedly lands in front of them on the dragon, showing them that he found the demon that escaped. Ulysses is completely speechless, so he explains that he found her motionless on the ground and she was bleeding out. That's why he decided to make some medicine for her, because the fact that she canceled a spell that could have easily killed both Akuri and Ulysses was reason enough for him to save her. However, he mixed an anesthetic into the medicine that would put her to sleep for around 3 days. He kept his distance, but he also tried to speak with the demon, not knowing if they could understand one another. Nonetheless, the woman kept her guard up all the time, saying that showing his enemies mercy will lead to death. That made him think about the other horned girl he once met, Hildegard, because it was clearly different from this situation. The woman reacted when she heard that name, but she passed out before she could say anything, so Kurt brought her with him. Ulysses is still a little stunned, even after that explanation, because she thought she recalled poison didn't work on demons, yet Kurt somehow managed, as always, defying any logic she knows. Leaving that aside, they all decide to return to the frontier's town, quickly heading to the Atelier with the unconscious demon. Ulysses is completely exhausted, and even if they only left for a day for this job, she feels like it's been a week since they were last back home. On the other hand, Kurt asks Akuri to apologize to Sina and the others for disappearing so suddenly, and the little girl quickly understands. Lisa and Sina finally reunite with Akuri, letting her know how worried they were when she left, but also giving her lots of affection. Ulysses tries to intervene, because Lisa and Akuri were forbidden from contact, but she decides to make an exception, just for today. After all, Akuri did save her life back there, and she definitely wouldn't be alive if it weren't for her sudden appearance in the fight with that demon, so she can allow this interaction this time. Akuri claims that she's hungry, so Lisa proposes to have a big meal today, in celebration of their return. Just as they speak, a tall man with white hair comes downstairs to receive them, welcoming Kurt and Ulysses back to the Atelier. Ulysses doesn't say anything at first, simply wondering who he might be, and Kurt is clearly a little surprised. When they're face to face with the man, Lise quickly joins them and explains that their Atelier Meister has finally arrived, and it is the man in front of them. This information takes Ulysses off guard, since the Atelier Meister actually is Kurt, even if he himself doesn't know it yet. However, as unaware as he is, Kurt is simply excited to finally meet him, ignoring the fact that Ulysses is freaking out, completely confused about the whole thing, once again. After meeting the Atelier Meister, named Rikuto, Ulysses doesn't seem very convinced, so she asks Kurt to go prepare dinner, and Sina follows him with Akuri, leaving them alone. Before she can say anything, Rikuto suddenly cages her against the carriage without saying a word. Ulysses then kicks him, getting surprised when her foot passes through his body. She quickly understands the situation and scolds Lisa for taking her joke too far. Truth is, Lisa is using the blade Kurt gifted her, which can also create an illusion of a person that doesn't exist. She assures that this person does exist, because Rikuto is what she envisions a 20-year-old version of Kurt would be like. A note from Mimiko suddenly falls from the sky, informing them that she'll come report on her investigation into Akuri 3 days from now. When the day comes, Mimiko shows up at the Atelier and confesses that their general conclusion about Akuri is that they don't know. This clearly confuses everyone, so she explains that she did some investigation using the hair and saliva samples Ulysses took from that child, but they were exactly the same as a human's. However, they extracted a faint trace of a substance similar to magic crystals from her nails, ones for spatial magic no less, which is impossible to find in humans. They have records of spatial magic being used during the Age of Creation, but now it's a lost magic that no one can use. That's the magic substance they detected on Akuri's body. Kurt asks her if that means Akuri is a monster, but all Mimiko says is that she doesn't know, and they have absolutely no idea what that girl is. She looks like a human, talks like a human, and eats food like one, but she's not human. Mimiko confesses that she's terrified that such a being is here in this atelier, and it would be best to use a sealing curse so she can't use teleportation magic anymore, and then safeguard her in her research lab. Kurt immediately refuses to accept that idea, which kind of takes Mimiko off guard. He explains that when asking if you feel safe when you're with someone else, it doesn't matter if they're human or not. Akuri went straight to the dragon hunter on her own, and he's sure that's because she was worried about how the dragon hunter was still asleep. That little girl has a kind heart, and he's never once felt scared or anxious when he was with her, so she's staying with them. Ulysses agrees with him, saying that Akuri already saved her life once. Besides, if Mimiko didn't find any proof that she's a monster, then they at least know she's not one of those. Lisa mentions that she has faith in that girl too, and Akuri is their precious daughter. Mimiko gives in to everyone's insistence, asking them to take care of Akuri in that case. Leaving that aside, the next they need to discuss is that dragon hunter that attacked them. Kurt tells her that she's in the storage room on the second basement floor, but before she goes, he asks Mimiko not to throw the dragon hunter into prison. Mimiko doesn't say anything, but when she sees the woman, she knows that she'll be facing worse than prison, because demons are the natural enemy of humans. After injecting a liquid into her body, Mimiko sees the demon waking up, so she asks her if she can speak. The woman simply says that warriors speak no more than necessary. Mimiko then understands that the woman is a demon warrior, and she speaks like that as a part of her warrior persona, not because it's how she grew up talking. The demon suddenly tries to set her body on fire, but Mimiko tells her it's useless because there's a barrier sealing magic around the room they're in. Mimiko asks her more questions, but the demon refuses to speak, saying that a loser obeys the victor, and she's not the one who defeated her, it was Kurt, so she'll only answer his questions. Having no other choice, the girls bring Kurt into the room, and the first thing he asks the demon is how she's feeling. The woman tells him she's fine, but the only thing that bothers her is that she's all tied up. Kurt apologizes, explaining that he's been told not to release her until they're done talking, so she just has to answer some questions. Before he can even ask anything, the woman says one name, and that is Hildegard, the name he mentioned when he captured her. Ulysses asks who that is, so Kurt mentions that she's the daughter of a trader who often came to his village. She was one of the horned folk like this young woman, so he thought they might know each other. The woman asks him if she was wearing a griffin crest, and Kurt confirms that she was wearing one when they met. After hearing that, the woman doesn't hesitate, saying that she wants to save Lady Hildegard. She explains that Hildegard is being held captive beneath Margrave Tycoon's castle. The information manages to shock everyone in the room, and Kurt quickly says that they need to save her. Ulysses stops him right there, reminding him that they can't guarantee the demon's telling them the truth. After all, it does sound to her like she's just trying to play along with his questions. If she wanted to save Hildegard, there would be no reason for her to target Akuri. The woman explains that she was investigating the goals of the Margrave, and the Margrave was investigating them all. That's when she saw it. She saw the little girl appear out of nowhere, and she knew that with Akuri's power, she could save Lady Hildegard. Kurt quickly believes her story, but Ulysses reminds him that there's no proof of that. The woman then asks them to take a look at her pendant, and when Ulysses inspects it, Kurt immediately recognizes it as Hildegard's pendant. The demon explains that she received it from Lady Hildegard, and she stopped her spell during their fight because she saw that crest on the dagger Ulysses was using. That dagger belongs to Kurt, and he mentions that he received his daggers from Hildegard too. Now it's clear that the woman isn't lying, so Mimiko accepts to go save Hildegard for her. However, she'll have to remain in this room, and if she runs away or dies on them, then Hildegard won't be saved. Mimiko asks Kurt to tell her that, but Kurt simply asks her to stay here, promising that they'll save Hildegard no matter what. Hearing that, the woman decides to finally introduce herself as Soulflare, which makes him really happy. Just then, Akuri suddenly teleports between them, getting a little nervous when Kurt scolds her for doing such a thing. Leaving that aside, everyone decides to make a plan to save Hildegard, and Mimiko shows them the blueprints of Margrave Tycoon's mansion. She explains that Margrave Tycoon's wife, Farnard, died 10 years ago, shortly after giving birth to his eldest daughter, Famille, and said Famille also died last year from disease. In the mansion, there's one room which only Margrave Tycoon is allowed to enter, but they've witnessed him carrying food into there. Said door was always locked, so neither Soulflare nor Phantom could enter when they tried. Phantom said it would take time to unlock, even for an expert treasure hunter. Lisa mentions that if they can't unlock it, then they just need to have him unlock it for them. They'll create an illusory thief, send them to that secret room, and make it look like they're using magic to pass through the walls and get inside. That way, the Margrave will have no choice but to unlock it himself. They'll have to cleverly lead Margrave Tycoon into it, so they can have Rikudo handle that role. It just so happens he's hosting a 3-day festival in his city next week, so they'll head to his city on the excuse of sightseeing and having their newly appointed Atelier Meister greet him. Ulysses asks what they'll do with Kurt, since it would be dangerous to leave him in an atelier with a demon. Lee says that he'll come with them, and she will simply tell him that they're going to study the local market during the festival, so he can learn what's popular in their nation and what the quality of goods is like. Then, when they get their chance, they'll go rescue Hildegard. They'll execute the plan on the 3rd day when the soldiers are exhausted, so they'll be studying the market on the 1st and 2nd days. With that in mind, Ulysses and Lisa suddenly start a game of rock, paper, scissors to decide who'll have a date with Kurt on the 1st day. Lisa wins the game, so Ulysses warns her that any scandalous behavior is forbidden, though the same goes for her. After some time, the 1st day of the festival arrives, so Lisa goes to the city with Kurt, Akuri, Ulysses, and Rikuto. Kurt doesn't know the Atelier Meister is an illusion, so he apologizes for the trouble he's causing with this stuff with Hildegard. Rikuto asks him not to worry, saying that if a noble of this nation is imprisoning a woman, then as part of the royal family, he can't allow it to stand. Kurt is caught by surprise, because he had no idea Rikuto was from the royal family. This clearly was a mistake from Lisa, who was projecting her thoughts through Rikuto. Rikuto quickly asks him to keep it a secret. And Kurt obliviously agrees, which is a relief for the girls. Once they arrive in the city, Rakuto leaves with the excuse of having to prepare his greetings, and Ulysses says that she'll investigate Margrave Tycoon in the meantime. Kurt offers to help her, but Lisa quickly interferes, reminding him that he's going to the festival with her, and studying the market is an important job too. Plus, it looks like Akuri's been looking forward to enjoying the festival with her father as well. Kurt smiles at the little girl, realizing that he doesn't want her to have the same experience he had, and that's why he'll do his best to ensure Akuri can enjoy the festival. When the festival starts, Kurt and Lisa walk around carrying Akuri, looking like a genuine family. The first thing they see is a stand that sells spineless cacti, a unique product of the desert nation, Torsion. Lisa explains that when you slice them, sweet water spills out, and it's very delicious. Kurt decides to buy 2 for Lisa and Akuri, saying that he's fine with the leftovers. Lisa lets him try a little of hers, though she stares at the area Kurt drank from for a moment and suddenly chomps on it, enjoying the indirect kiss without him knowing. They continue walking after that, and Lisa mentions she heard he traveled all around their nation when he was an adventurer, so he probably has seen plenty of festivals. Kurt affirms that he has, but he was always doing maintenance on the party's equipment and guarding their carriage in the stable. It sounds awful, but he clarifies that it isn't normal for the person in charge of the chores to enjoy a festival in the first place. Though a part of him always did want to go and enjoy the festival, so he wants Akuri to enjoy it a lot now. After hearing that, Lisa smiles and suddenly takes his hand, saying that the 3 of them are going to enjoy the festival today, and they'll have enough fun to make up for those other times. Kurt is a little surprised by her sudden excitement, and deep down Lisa has decided that today is the day she'll confess. The 3 of them continue walking around the festival, and Lisa gets excited when someone calls Kurt her husband. Kurt easily wins the first game he tries, something no one else was able to do until then, and he wins 10 kilograms of red beans. The bag is too heavy to carry it around, so Lisa suggests having a porter take it back to the inn for them. After that, they continue trying different games, and Lisa is even able to show off her skills in archery. They try different sweets, see different products, and have a lot of fun together the whole day. After a while, Lisa decides that she wants to get away from the din of the crowd and spend some time somewhere quiet with Kurt, and there is a beautiful park perfect for that along the moat surrounding the castle. Once they get there, she is suddenly very determined, knowing that the stage for her confession is finally set. After all they have done together and all the fun they had, she is sure that Kurt has definitely enjoyed himself today, and the whole world should be looking bright in his eyes right now. And then, when he finally turns around, he will notice that she has been with him in that brightness this whole time, which will hopefully make him harbor new feelings for her. Lisa approaches Kurt, waiting for that perfect moment, but when she sees his face, she notices he doesn't look happy at all. There's this sadness in his expression, and it's because he's staring at Margrave Tycoon's castle. Lisa realizes that she has made a mistake, and she didn't think about the fact that the castle is visible from where they are. She asks him if he's worried about Hildegard, but Kurt quickly reassures her, saying that everyone said they would save her, so he should have faith in them instead of worrying. Despite that, the fact that he can't do anything about it hurts. Lisa reminds him that he freed her from her curse, and he constructed such an impressive atelier too. He says that that's just because he was the one who happened to be there at the time, but those are all things anyone could have done. Lisa knows that's not true, but she knows that telling him that won't reach his heart right now. There's only one thing she can convey to him, and that is how much she deeply adores him. Lisa clarifies that she's not the only one, but everyone else, including Mimiko, Ophelia, and even Rakuto. They all like him and want to help him, and that's why they're saving Hildegard. Kurt can't help tearing up when he hears that, and he confesses that he likes them all too. Lisa is satisfied to see him happy again, and she knows that was a good chance for her to confess, but she won't let the opportunity pass next time. The next day, Kurt makes a new sword for Ulysses, as her last sword was ruined in the battle against that demon. He makes an alloy of mithril and adamantite in a small pot. And just with that, he manages to make a sword with an incredible edge, capable of cutting through stone. The master weaponsmith can't even believe Kurt managed to do something like that, and in order to not disgrace his title, he decides that he'll leave to rehone his craft. Ulysses mentions that this sword glimmers brilliantly, like flowers in the snow, so she decides to name it Snowflake. Today's the day she'll study the market with Kurt, the perfect excuse to have a date with him. Kurt decided to let Akuri sleep a bit more, so now he and Ulysses can spend some time alone at the festival. She's very excited about their date, since as an adventurer, Ulysses knows plenty of the city's hidden gems, so she'll show Kurt the difference between her and Lisa. Just at that moment, a group of delinquents assaults one of the festival stands, but Ulysses tries to pretend not to see it. After all, she doesn't have the time to get involved in a stranger's fight and she wants to focus on her date. However, once she turns around to see Kurt, Ulysses realizes that he's gone, and she already knows what's about to happen. Just as expected, Kurt quickly intervenes in the fight, confronting the criminals without hesitation. Ulysses simply observes the scene, accepting that a peaceful date was always impossible. One of the delinquents explains that this shop's meat buns taste awful, so they're busting up the stand to make sure no other customers buy them by mistake. Kurt decides to buy one meat bun, and after tasting it, he says that it's actually delicious, and they're even using very carefully selected meat for its ingredients too. One of the ruffians pushes him, asking him to stop talking like a critic, but Ulysses catches Kurt, clarifying that he's actually a staff at an atelier. That information makes the criminals back away, since they know that ateliers are filled with nobles. Once they leave, Kurt tries to help the shop owner, but realizes that he has some broken bones. Ulysses tells him that it's easy enough to fix with a swig of his medicine, but Kurt immediately rejects that idea, saying that there was a hospital along in the way here, so he'll take him there. After all, that'll be better for the man than any medicine made by an amateur like himself. Kurt leaves with the shop owner before Ulysses can stop him, so she cries for being left behind on her first date. Soon enough, she realizes that the shop owner's daughter is also crying, so she tries to comfort her. Ulysses notices a phantom member walking undercover in the festival, selling spineless cactus. She decides to buy one for the girl, and the member of Phantom informs her that there's a cooking competition for street stalls this afternoon. The one to watch for is Gargle Restaurant, who's won 2 years in a row. However, this year there's a very delicious meat bun stall that's going to participate for the first time. Gargle Restaurant is in quite a pinch, and apparently they even hired some thugs to harass them. Ulysses suddenly looks pissed, realizing that that's the reason her date got interrupted. She tries to calm down and returns to the stand to give the little girl a spineless cactus, knowing that they already got rid of the thugs so she can continue her date with Kurt once he comes back. However, when Kurt comes back, he sadly informs them that the shop owner had pretty serious breaks, so he will be hospitalized until tomorrow. Once again, Ulysses knows exactly where this is going, and she doesn't like it at all. Just as she expected, Kurt asks her if it's alright for him to help with the shop. He made a promise to the shop owner, and he told him that he'd take care of everything, so he wants to help the most he can. Ulysses starts crying again, completely defeated, knowing that her date with Kurt is totally crushed now. Her despair quickly turns into rage, because her date is gone thanks to that Gargle Restaurant. That's why she decides to help out as well, wanting to make sure they beat them in that cooking competition. The little girl mentions that it's impossible now because those thugs dumped out all the meat filling they use in their meat buns. They'll have to give up on selling any, not to mention the competition. Before she starts crying again, Ulysses quickly reassures her, letting her know that they're on her side now. She asks Kurt if he can make an absolutely delicious bun using different ingredients, and he confirms that he can. The little girl then introduces herself as Luna, and Ulysses asks Kurt to teach Luna how to make the buns. After all, if they made them and won, then her father wouldn't be happy, so she has to make them herself, and they will help in every way they can. The little girl accepts, so Ulysses says that she'll go procure the ingredients, because they'll definitely win the competition. Kurt then asks her to go buy as many overripe spineless cacti as she can from the street stall in the main street. He also asks her to go to the inn and bring the red beans he won as a prize yesterday. He mentions that while she's doing that, he'll dig right in this area. That leaves Ulysses a little confused, and she reminds him that this is the plaza of the Lord's city. Kurt reassures her, saying that he can dig it fast, though that's clearly not the issue here. He asks Luna to bring him a shovel, but Ulysses quickly asks him to at least get permission first. Later that day, we see the judges of the competition visiting Gargle's donut stand. One of the judges tries a donut and says that he's going for a third win because none of the other shops can compare. He convinces the other judges that Gargle Restaurant is going to be the winner again this year, since they haven't seen any other shops standing out so far. Gargle grins victoriously, knowing that he paid one of the judges to be in his pocket, so it'll be easy to win this year again. However, everyone in the festival soon starts talking about a shop called Full Moon Buns, which is selling a rare bun with a dark, exquisite filling. Gargle is speechless, since he sent those thugs to crush that shop. He decides to see it for himself, and is shocked to see the business thriving, full of happy customers. The judges are drawn to the shop, but Gargle tries to stop them from trying the buns, warning them that their filling is far too black, so there must be something rotten in them. Luna quickly approaches them with a tray of buns, saying that it's true that the filling of their buns is dark black, but they should try them before judging. The judges accept the buns, and Luna explains that the filling is sweet red beans that have been boiled and strained. It's a Far East dessert called anko, and it has a faintly fruity aroma due to the spineless cacti they used. Kurt explained that the fruit absorbs more sugar as it ripens, so the juice inside grows bitter. However, when you dice the fruit, add water, then press it and boil it down, then you get a delicious cactus honey. Luna mentions that she mixed that honey with boiled red beans to create sweet anko. The judges are very intrigued after hearing that, so they decide to finally try the buns. All of them end up completely delighted by the taste, and even Gargle is surprised, so he decides to try one himself, immediately proving how good it truly is. Ulysses approaches them to explain that their temporary owner got a bit serious about these buns. He says that when you make dough using water with baking soda in it and then steam it, it creates a soft and fluffy texture. Gargle quickly asks her where they got water with baking soda from, and she simply says they got it from hot springs. These buns are kneaded and steamed with hot spring water drawn from underground right here, so they can be called hot spring buns. The judges and Gargel are clearly confused because there are no hot springs here, but Ulysses informs them that Kurt dug one up just today. Gargle immediately protests, since there's no way someone can just dig one up that easily. Ulysses admits that it is like that normally, but he can't say the same thing for the staff of an atelier. This information shocks Gargel, and he doesn't look happy about it, so he asks Ulysses if they got Margrave Tychoon's permission for this, because even an atelier would be punished for that crime. She calmly tells him that they did get permission for it, because the third Princess Lieselot easily took care of that. Also, the hot spring they dug up will be placed under city management from now on, and it'll be a brand new tourist attraction. Gargle doesn't even want to believe what she's saying, and he's convinced every single part of it is a lie. He quickly speaks to the judge he paid, trying to remind him what he's supposed to be doing. However, the judge apologizes, saying that he can't possibly give this shop a bad review and he doesn't need the money he promised him. Gargle feels cornered, so he meets with the thugs he hired and asks them to crush that shop. However, the thugs were merely an illusion Lisa created with some members of Phantom to trick him and make him confess. She clarifies that these thugs he hired are already in a cell, and Ulysses appears behind Gargle to mention that she heard he's the one who supplies the Margrave's chefs. She also heard that he's been reusing his food scraps in his restaurant, and the worst part is that they say he's also been mixing addictive substances into his food to increase repeat customers too, which is completely illegal. Ulysses mentions that they know that because all of the chefs in the castle are his men, and when Lisa made an illusion of him, they gladly shared everything. Gargle is completely cornered, but he still claims that he won't let himself be finished here, and he immediately lunges at Lisa with a knife. One of the members of Phantom easily takes him down, and Ulysses informs him that he's not getting out of a life sentence after that stunt, because he's now going in for treason. Gargle doesn't understand why, so Lisa properly introduces herself as the third princess of the Kingdom of Hamuros, Lieselota Hamuros. Phantom takes him away, and Lisa mentions that it was unfortunate that she couldn't have her date with Kurt. Ulysses tells her that she's just glad she brought a smile to Luna and Kurt, and she supposes this is just what spending a day with him is like. That night, Margrave Tychoon is informed that Gargel got arrested for threatening Princess Lieselot with a knife. During their investigation, they uncovered more of his misdeeds, and since the chefs he sent to them were involved too, they were all taken in as well. Margrave isn't happy about this at all, because he knows that Lise is coming here again tomorrow with the Atelier Meister, and there's no way they can prepare a tea party without any chefs. His assistant then suggests presenting the food that won the cooking competition as the centerpiece of the tea party. They received the judge's report moments ago, and apparently a sweet bun was chosen as the winner, so maybe it would be fitting for a tea party. Margrave accepts the idea, so he asks his assistant to bring that chef here first thing in the morning. Once he's alone, he keeps thinking about Lisa and her intentions, wondering if she realized what he's doing. Despite his doubts, he knows that this is a good opportunity, and he needs to create a chance to speak with the Atelier Meister one-on-one and convey his deepest wish. The next day, Kurt gives Rikuto the market study report for yesterday, and Ulysses informs him that they're finally going to rescue Hildegard today. She shows him the mapping of the Lord's castle, giving him a brief explanation of the plan. Their objective is beyond the kitchen, and it would make it convenient to bring Hildegard some food without drawing attention. The door is right there, but it has a troublesome lock that keeps people out, so they'll have to investigate it and obtain proof that Hildegard is being held captive, then convince Margrave to release her. Rikuto mentions that he knows he must be worried, but he asks Kurt to leave it to him. Kurt accepts, putting his trust in the Atelier Meister and telling him that he'll be helping Luna with her shop today with Akuri. Once he's gone, Lisa cancels the illusions of Rikuto and herself, even surprising Ulysses. Butterfly needs to be unsheathed in order to control its illusions, but they can't attend a meeting with Margrave while holding a drawn sword. There's also the issue of objects passing through the illusions, so the strategy they devise to overcome these two issues is for Lisa to create an illusion of Rikuto and herself that's not holding Butterfly, then make herself invisible. Then the invisible Lisa will support the illusions to make it look like they're able to hold objects. As they head to the castle, Ulysses receives a message from Phantom, which informs them that Kurt has been hired as Margrave Tychoon's chef, and he and Akuri have entered the castle's kitchen. Both Ulysses and Lisa are shocked by that information, and even though they know that Kurt being there completely crushed their plan, they can only nervously laugh about it to avoid tearing up. The Margrave's guards visit the bun stand where Kurt and Luna are, informing them that their lord has requested the hot springs buns, so they need around 100 as soon as possible. Luna is kind of worried because they also said they want them to bring the chef to the castle, but it's almost time to open the shop, so she can't afford to leave here. Kurt quickly reassures her, telling the guards that he'll make the buns now and then go to the castle with them, so they don't need to worry. He offers them some test samples he made while they wait, and all the guards freeze in shock when they try the buns for the first time. By the time Kurt finishes preparing 100 buns, the guards finally snap out of their haze, saying that all the fatigue from guarding the festival is gone in a flash. Kurt walks to the castle with them and Akuri, but just then he realizes that they're heading to Margrave Tycoon's castle, the place where Hildegard is being held prisoner. After getting there, he's even more shocked to find out that the sweets he made are meant to be served to the princess. He made them since he heard it was an urgent order, but now he's worried he'll get arrested for disrespect if they're served. The Margrave's servant reassures him, saying that he doesn't need to worry, but he must remain where he is until the meeting is over, because the Margrave or the princess might call for the chef. The meeting finally begins, and Margrave mentions to Lise that he heard one of the chefs in town was terribly rude to her yesterday. She simply brushes it off, saying that he doesn't need to worry about it, because it's not like he sent him after her. This makes him laugh nervously, and in the meantime, Ulysses guards the door outside, closely listening to their conversation. It sounds like Lisa is handling things well, but Ulysses can't afford to leave this space, so she can't meet up with Kurt, and can only hope he doesn't do anything uncalled for. Kurt is simply waiting with Akuri, wondering if things are going well for Ulysses and the others. He feels like he could go past that door right now, but he knows he shouldn't do anything uncalled for. Akuri seems worried about him, so Kurt explains to her that a friend of his might be beyond that door, but it's currently locked and keeping him out. The little girl happily says that she'll take him to his friend, and after hugging him, the two of them teleport past the door. Kurt is clearly confused, since he didn't know he could teleport with Akuri when touching her. Still, he knows he definitely shouldn't be in there, so he asks her to take them back where they were. Akuri tells him she can't do that, and it's not the first time this happens, so Kurt assumes she's not able to teleport again right away. Before she starts crying, Kurt tries to reassure her, but just then, they hear a voice nearby, asking if there's someone there. Kurt freezes, wondering if that could be Hildegard, and even though he knows he shouldn't, he decides to do something, because if she's right there, then he wants to save her. Knowing it's a complicated lock, he tries to open the door, and manages to do it after just a few seconds. However, Hildegard isn't waiting behind that door, and he finds an old woman instead. In the meantime, Margrave says that he'd like to get right down to business, but Rakuto clarifies that he wants to ask him a few questions before giving him an answer, and he'd like to do it alone. Lisa stands invisible behind Rakuto, so she sends the illusion of herself outside, leaving Margrave and Rakuto alone. Just as the fake Lise steps out, the old man shows a sly smile, so she knows right away that he has some secret he doesn't want her to hear about. Rakuto starts the conversation off by saying that he's not very good at negotiations like Princess Liselot, so he'll get straight to the point. The first thing he asks Margrave is what he's seeking from him, and the old man directly questions if he has any interest in eternal youth, which takes Lisa completely off guard. Back with Kurt, the old lady invites him in, but Akuri is the first to approach her with a worried expression, asking her if she's sick. The old lady is surprised by how perceptive she is, and she admits that she hasn't had much of an appetite lately. Akuri then offers her a hot spring bun, confidently saying that she'll feel better if she eats it. The old lady kindly accepts the bun and gives it a try, clearly pleased to be able to taste something so delicious. Just then, Kurt realizes something, so he asks her why she has the appearance of an old woman. Once again, she's surprised that he was able to tell, and the fact that he could open the lock. The old lady asks him if he's some manner of celebrated mage or something, but Kurt simply tells her that he's just in charge of chores at an atelier. It doesn't seem that way to her, but still, she thinks that he might be able to save her. Seeing his confusion, the old lady clarifies she means the demon held captive directly beneath this room, Hildegard. Kurt is surprised to hear this, so he explains that Hildegard used to visit his village roughly 10 years ago. Knowing that, the old lady asks him to help her, and Kurt accepts without a doubt. He suddenly takes a hardened loaf of bread out of his bag, saying that he'll use a knife to shave it into a shovel. This obviously sounds ridiculous, and it leaves the old lady highly confused, so she asks him to wait and simply presses a button, opening a secret entrance. She explains that he can reach the basement where she's being held through there, so he doesn't need to do anything crazy. Meanwhile, after the question of the Margrave, Rakuto admits that eternal youth is the greatest goal of their research as Atelier Meisters. Margrave mentions that it's not easy to realize eternal youth, but it's also true that there are races which live far longer than humans ever do. For example, elves and demons. In the past, there were experiments to extend a person's lifespan by transplanting cells from those races into humans. Rakuto says that he's aware of that, but he clarifies that those experiments failed, and due to the gruesome side effects they caused, such cell transplants have been banned by national law. Despite that, Margrave asks him if he can create a drug for eternal youth that has no side effects, given his skill. After all, he's already received reports that the medicine created in his atelier produces tremendous effects. Lisa realizes that Margrave was planning to use Hildegard's cells for his eternal youth experiments. She could generate the illusion of a thief and lead this sly fox into her prison chambers now. But before she does that, she decides to search for more answers. Rikuto puts Margrave under pressure, asking him why he's in such a hurry. Rikuto puts Margrave under pressure, asking him why he's in such a hurry. After all, the handling of demon cells goes against both the teachings of the Poland Church and the policies of the nation, so he already understood an Atelier Meister wouldn't agree to such an atrocious thing that easily. And yet, he wants him to move forward with such experiments no matter what it may cost. Looking around at the furnishings in the room, he finds it hard to believe he's the kind of man who's obsessed with wealth or status, so he wants to know who he's planning to use the medicine on. All this questioning makes Margrave feel nervous, but he states that it doesn't matter, and he simply needs the medicine. Lisa knows that she won't get more information than that, so she decides to create the illusion of thieves, and Ulysses quickly alerts them. She informs them that a group of thieves appeared out of nowhere, and she fought back, but the thieves headed into the kitchen like they were searching for someone. Margrave looks really worried at this, so he asks Lisa and Rikuto to stay in this room, telling Ulysses that she must protect them, and they can't leave this room, no matter what. Once he leaves, Lisa follows him in secret, using her blade to remain invisible and to get definitive proof with her own eyes. However, she's surprised to realize Margrave isn't worried about finding Hildegard, but someone else. Lisa wonders why he's saying the name of his daughter, who should be dead. While he heads down the basement, she decides to stay in the room, using long scents to enhance her sense of smell. She notices Kurt's scent in the room, but finds a strand of hair that doesn't belong to him. With that in mind, Lisa decides that it's best to rejoin Ulysses before doing anything. In the meantime, Kurt finally enters the room where Hildegard truly is, finding her trapped inside a magic circle. She quickly recognizes him, and the old lady releases her, so Kurt runs to Hildegard, really happy to see her again, saying that he's here to save her. Hildegard is still trying to process that Kurt is there, and he's really glad to see she's okay. However, he gets a little confused when he sees that she hasn't changed since he met her nearly 10 years ago. The older men in his village always told him to praise a woman on her changes when reuniting after a while, but he's struggling to find anything different on her right now. That's why he tells her that she hasn't changed at all, and Hildegard doesn't hesitate to punch him square in the face, saying that it's his fault. She explains that she hasn't grown at all, no matter how many years have passed, all thanks to the medicine he made her swallow. Kurt quickly apologizes, saying that he might have mistaken the ratio of rainbow flowers a little bit. Hildegard is still furious because not only did he do this to her, but he also moved out of the village so she couldn't find him, and she asks him how he's going to make this up to her, hitting him repeatedly out of frustration. However, she stops when Akuri asks her not to be mean to her dad, clearly being protective. This only angers Hildegard even more, so she asks Kurt if he really went and had children while leaving her like this. Kurt quickly tries to clear the misunderstanding, explaining that Akuri may be his child, but she was born from a waterfowl's egg, so he hasn't done anything to make children. Hildegard doesn't look very surprised given that it's Kurt, so she leaves that aside and says that she's feeling hungry. He offers her hard bread, because that's all he has right now, and Hildegard doesn't have a problem accepting it, but it's so hard that she can't even take a bite. The old lady decides to speak, now realizing that Hildegard's eternal youth was caused by medicine that Kurt made. Hildegard confirms this, and asks Kurt if he can still make it now, but he says that he hasn't seen any rainbow flowers since then, so he could not make it. Hearing that, Hildegard apologizes to the old lady, calling her by her name, and feeling bad that she couldn't be of more help to her. When he hears her name, Kurt realizes that the old lady is Margrave Tycoon's daughter, Famille, but he mentions that he heard she died of a disease. Famille explains that that's what her father told everyone, though since he saw through to her real age, then she doesn't need to say any more for him to understand. Her father has been grieving and shedding tears as he watches her rapidly age, day after day. Despite her words, Kurt clearly doesn't understand anything, so he tries to think. Margrave Tycoon was saddened by watching her age day after day, then he imprisoned Hildegard, searching for the eternal youth medicine. Kurt wonders what Margrave Tycoon's real goal truly is, and that reminds him of when he asked the members of Sakura before they left for this city. Can simply said that some people are into some crazy things, so Margrave probably has eccentric tastes. Having that in mind, Kurt finally comes to a conclusion, though it's probably a wrong one. Margrave arrives just then, clearly relieved to see Famille is safe, because he was truly worried for a moment. When Kurt sees Margrave for the first time, he confidently tells him that what he's doing is wrong. He knows that everyone has different preferences, but that doesn't mean he can get away with doing this. Margrave tells him that he wouldn't understand, but Kurt assures him that he does, because he's a father too. He loves Akuri, and he would do anything for her sake, but all children grow up. Instead, Margrave grieved Famiel's growth and chose to love the never-aging Hildegard. He couldn't take watching his daughter grow up, so he made a false declaration that she died, all because he saw his young daughter's growth as growing too old. Hearing all that nonsense, Margrave tells him that he never did that, clearly confused. Even though he's completely loud and wrong, Kurt confidently says that in her grief at her treatment, Famiel grew rebellious and drank medicine to make her look like an old woman. Famiel denies this, but Kurt continues talking nonsense, making everyone confused. To top this all up, Kurt leaves everyone completely speechless when he accuses Margrave of being a pervert who likes children. Of course, Margrave tries to deny this because it's actually not true, but Kurt continues rambling, asking him to think back to the day Famiel was born. Margrave admits that his daughter is the precious treasure that his wife Farnard gave her life to birth to, and he vowed to live for her, even if it cost him his own life or his soul. Kurt is glad he finally understands, but Hildegard uses a spell to paralyze him before he says more nonsense, because he's still mistaken. With him out of the way, Hildegard asks Famiel if she's sure she wants to follow through with this, despite what her father said. Famiel gives her a confirmation, asking Hildegard to please kill her father.